Chapter 1638, Weapon Clouds. Those wings could definitely be a level 3 Imperial weapon, and the quality wouldn't be low. Thought everybody after they saw the embryo of Seaman Nan's wings. On top of that, Seaman Nan and his assistant were carving marks together. They were using wind-type strength to carve marks, and their energy was ever increasing. Gu Qingfeng's fan was an ice fan, which emanated a frost which would send a chill down anyone's back. "No, you can't," said a young man as the ice energies surrounded him. Not only him, his cauldron also started freezing, his fire fading. His assistant had moved back silently. The crowd was speechless. They couldn't attack others. But Gu Qingfeng hadn't done it on purpose. It was just that his energies were too vast. A professor in purple clothes looked embarrassed. The young man broke through the ice, and besides the shivering, he looked furious. It had been so difficult to get to the finals. And now he was going to get eliminated like that? You still have time. Go to another place, and continue making your weapon. In any case, with your strength, you wouldn't have ranked in the top 10. You still need to improve a lot, said one of the professors in purple. That young man lowered his head and remained silent. Then he took his cauldron away. He didn't want to make a weapon anymore. He was too upset, and he knew that he couldn't compete with those people anyways. Watching up close wasn't bad either. At that moment, golden lights filled the stage as Hen Changtian's tower reached the clouds, its energy oppressing down on everyone. That's a level 3 Imperial weapon. Who could defeat him? Thought the crowd. Marks condense, shouted Lin Feng again. In a flash, dazzling lights emerged from his marks as they intertwined together. Hammer, shouted Lin Feng. Instantly, Mu Lin Shui threw the hammer at Lin Feng. He moved his hand and caught it without even looking up. Then he started hammering the weapon relentlessly. Is that the final version? Thought the crowd. The energies were already explosive, so how much stronger could it get? Nobody could be sure. That deployment spell could definitely make a level 3 Imperial weapon, and it would be a powerful weapon at that. But is it enough? Whispered Yin Feng's future teacher. The other professor in purple clothes smiled and said, "It seems that you're starting to regret. The tournament isn't over yet, so don't get so happy too early. That spear is great, and the deployment spell is explosive. The materials are the best, and finally, I'm certain that it can kill low-level emperors. All in all, there's nothing Yin Feng does that they can't do," said the teacher who thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. He looked calm outwardly, but on the inside he was nervous. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui's weapon was extremely complex. Lin Feng's deployment spell was actually too complex. If they had made a sword, it would have already finished by now. "Haha, you'll soon be disappointed," said Yin Feng's future teacher, smiling wholeheartedly. He felt like he had already won the bet. At that moment, Yin Feng opened his eyes again, flames bursting out of them. Even his blood started boiling and roaring. "This is the power of my blood," said Yin Feng. Suddenly, blood started drifting out of his body. The embryo of his weapon started shaking violently, even emitting whistling sounds. 9 Weapon Transformation Technique, 5th Transformation, Blood Transformation. Black. Yin Feng spat out his blood onto the weapon, darkening it to a dark red shade. The leader of the Yin clan stood up. The champion is going to appear soon. Quickly after, he was surrounded by a cloud of red colors. The sword was condensing, and the red color was turning into a red weapon cloud. Weapon cloud, the crowd shivered. Was Yin Feng going to make a level 4 Imperial weapon? But could he? No wonder he chose a sword, thought some people. No wonder the Yin clan is so sure that Yin Feng is going to win. They knew he could make a level 4 Imperial weapon. "Haha, buddy, I'll definitely get your technique now," said Yin Feng's future teacher smiling. He already knew that Yin Feng could make level 4 Imperial weapons. The professor next to him looked distraught. Maybe he really had made a mistake. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui were a great team, but he didn't know that Yin Feng could make level 4 Imperial weapons. He turned rigid and said, "The tournament isn't over, we'll see." Alright, we'll wait until the end of the tournament." Yin Feng's future teacher smiled happily. Cough cough. Mu Lin Shui had noticed Yin Feng's weapon cloud, and she was looking upset. She started releasing even more fire. "Don't worry, Mu Lin Shui. After the tournament is over, I'll take good care of you, said Yin Feng arrogantly. Mu Lin Xue's mouth was bleeding as she bit her lip, but she continued releasing more fire. Do your best and leave the rest to me, said Lin Feng to Mu Lin Xue in a calm way. Mu Lin Xue nodded and looked at the weapon. She could feel Lin Feng's confidence, which made her feel more confident too. Lin Feng suddenly stopped, and then released a terrifying strength. He put his fingers on the weapon, and continued carving more deployment marks. He's carving marks again, the crowd frowned. He wasn't done. How courageous! He's making a double embryo, and using 2 deployment spells. Thought the teacher who thought highly of Lin Feng. He had hope again. This time Lin Feng didn't carve the marks so quickly. He also didn't use immortal strength. Instead they were pale and mysterious. Nobody knew exactly what kind of marks he was carving. Is that wind or illusion strength? Thought the professor wearing golden red clothes. That little boy's deployment spells were incredible, having exceeded all their expectations. No matter what the result of the tournament was, he wanted to invite Lin Feng to join him at Goldfire Tower. Even if he didn't make weapons, his deployment spells were useful. The spear appeared indistinctly as lights and sharp energies rolled in waves. A powerful hurricane also formed. Weapon cloud. The crowd was astonished. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue had created 2 embryos, and a weapon cloud had appeared. Kacha! An explosion sounded next to Lin Feng. Mu Lai and Mu Yu's faces were black after their cauldron had exploded. The tournament was over for them. They both raised their heads and saw Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue's weapon cloud. They were furious. Were Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue actually better than them? Chapter 1639. Birth of an imperial weapon. Mu Lai and Mu Yu had lost, and their father, Mu Lin Xue's uncle, looked furious. His dreams were ruined. The clan wouldn't raise his children after this. Especially after Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue's made that weapon cloud appear. His cheeks felt extremely hot. Everybody from the Mu clan was staring at him. Mu Lai and Mu Yu are not resilient enough. How can they become strong that way? Said the leader of the Mu clan indifferently. Mu Lin Xue's uncle was petrified and furious. Master, there are success rates for these things. People who make weapons can't succeed every time. There are hundreds of teams, and some people fail. It's only normal. Mu Lai and Mu Yu aren't the only ones who failed. Besides, there aren't many people in the clan who are as good as Mu Yu and Mu Lai. Please forgive them. They're not bad at making weapons, and failing isn't a problem either. The problem is that they were influenced from seeing Lin Xue's weapon cloud. Of course, only time can tell how they'll evolve, said the leader of the Mu clan indifferently. If Mu Lin Xue defeats Yin Feng, what will the Mu clan do? Thought Mu Lin Xue's uncle. His heart was pounding. Would the Mu clan have to give up Mu Lin Xue? If Mu Lin Xue and Lin Feng defeated Yin Feng, they'd have to rank in the top 3. If that was the case, Goldfire Tower would have to protect them, even if the Mu clan changed their mind. Impossible. Even with a weapon cloud they can't win, thought Mu Lin Xue's uncle. Everybody had different thoughts. For example, the teacher who thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Lin Xue suddenly felt relieved. He even whispered, "Weapon cloud, haha, they can win." He glanced at Yin Feng's future teacher who was next to him. They were both wondering who would win. Lin Feng had exceeded all their expectations. Yin Feng looked upset, but he immediately took a deep breath and tried to control himself. He spat out more blood, making his sword become redder. His cloud was also looking thicker. Boom! At that moment, Henchang Tian had begun hammering his tower. A weapon cloud had appeared as well, but at the same time it seemed like it wasn't condensing. Chang Tian can make level 3 imperial weapons on his own. It's just a pity that he doesn't have an assistant who can help him with the deployment spells, thought the members of Goldfire Tower. With Lin Feng's deployment spells, Henchang Tian could have made a terrifying weapon. This tournament is great, there are so many geniuses this time, thought the level 9 professor smiling. Even though many people had failed, there were also many who stood out. Around 20 teams could make level 3 imperial weapons. Henchang Tian, Ge Feng, Si-Man Nan and Yin Feng's weapons would have a strength at the top of the 3rd level. Yin Feng might even make a level 4 imperial weapon. Mu Lin Xue and Lin Feng were also amazing, A cloud had appeared which meant they might succeed in making a level 4 imperial weapon as well. If you think highly of someone, do your best to keep them, said the cultivator in golden purple clothes, still smiling. By now, you've probably already noticed someone you'd like to recruit. The little boy with the amazing deployment spells is interesting. The girl he helps is interesting, but her fire is too weak. However, if she was raised properly, she could become quite strong, said the one who thought highly of Lin Feng. He said that because he was afraid that those next to him would choose them. You're getting too enthusiastic. His deployment spells are good indeed, but he's just helping. He might not be interested in making weapons. I think Yin Feng is better. He's aggressive and arrogant, but he's still young. I like his style, said the professor in golden red clothes, smiling. What about you? Asked the professor in golden purple clothes to the last one. That one, said the professor, pointing at a young man. He had remained calm the whole time, as if the outside world had nothing to do with him. Haha, I noticed him too. He's not bad indeed. He's still young and doesn't have incredible techniques, but he can make level 2 weapons, and isn't risking making a level 3 imperial weapon, said the professor in golden purple clothes, smiling. The advantage of the finals was that they could focus on certain people, even if those people didn't win. At that moment, Lin Feng was done carving marks, and their weapon was surrounded by cyan lights. No one could tell what Lin Feng had carved. Lin Feng put the embryo of the weapon on the cauldron again, and continued hammering it violently. Yin Feng was almost done. His red cloud practically blotted out the entire sky. He had sacrificed his own blood 7 times, and now he looked exhausted. His chi had started looking weaker. But no matter what, he had to defeat Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng. Almost done. If Yin Feng succeeds, then nobody will beat him. The leader of the Yin clan stood up, looking at Yin Feng's weapon. Many other members from the Yin clan also stood up. They could already see Yin Feng becoming the champion. Yin Feng grabbed the sword with both hands. Then his hands turned scarlet red as his blood penetrated the sword. His hands shook 9 times, all the while his sword kept whistling. Go, he shouted furiously. His sword pierced through the sky, the red cloud completely being sucked up by the sword. It's a success. The members of the Yin clan were overjoyed. Mu Lin Shui. Yin Feng turned to Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng. You can't disturb other people, shouted the teacher who thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. Right now was a crucial moment for them. Yin Feng looked upset, but then he glanced around and saw that it was a level 7 professor who had scolded him. He recalled his chi, quietly remembering that person for when he became stronger. Hee, it's getting intense, said Yin Feng's future teacher, smiling indifferently. I still think you will end up giving me your technique. Humph, another one groaned coldly. Hen Changtian and Gu Qingfeng had succeeded too. They didn't manage to make a level 4 imperial weapon, but a level 3 imperial weapon was still rather good. Only Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui still have a chance at defeating Yin Feng now, thought the crowd. Mu Lin Shui was soaked in sweat. She looked exhausted. Lin Feng was helping her control the fire now. There were 3 of Lin Feng's clones around the cauldron helping. Their cloud is not as vast as Yin Feng's, so even if they managed to make a level 4 imperial weapon, it still might not be as good as Yin Feng's, thought the crowd. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui's weapon cloud was quite small and cyan in color. Chapter 1640. Ranking C Man Nan also succeeded. His wings were whistling with strength. With those wings, cultivators could travel at incredible speeds. Not to mention their defenses would be amazing too. These were also a level 3 imperial weapon. Amongst the 4 geniuses, only Yin Feng had made a level 4 imperial weapon. Yin Feng's 9-weapon transformation technique was very special, and probably the only reason he succeeded. It seems that the champion has already been decided, thought the crowd. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui's weapon cloud still didn't look impressive enough. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui could still rank in the top 3 if they managed to make a level 4 imperial weapon, thought the crowd. 4 hours had passed already, which meant that they still had 4 hours to work with. Qingying had thought that 8 hours would be enough to make 3 or more weapons, but it seemed that making just 2 weapons in 8 hours was impossible. Congratulations, said a strong cultivator from Sword Mountain to the leader of the Yin clan. They already felt that Yin Feng had won. Hee, we knew this would happen. Yin Feng has never disappointed us, said the leader of the Yin clan happily. I wouldn't have thought that the champion would be Yin Feng. Even I'm surprised, said Yin Feng's future teacher. Even though he talked that way, he clearly didn't mean it. His colleagues knew what kind of person he really was. The tournament is not over, so don't talk too fast, said the one who thought highly of Lin Feng. I can't wait to see what kind of weapon he'll make, said Yin Feng's future teacher, smiling coldly. He looked at Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. Finally, they were finishing the spear. And if they succeeded, they might have a level 4 weapon. Then they might still rank second. Lin Shui, let's start the condensation part, said Lin Feng. Mu Lin Shui nodded. The spear was already surrounded by destructive energies which were dashing to the sky. Finally, the spear rotated in the sky. They did it, it's a level 4 imperial weapon. The crowd looked at the weapon. It was different from Yin Feng's weapon. It was a pale white spear. They ranked second. Surprisingly, Yin Feng and Mu Lin Shui, who were at the center of the Mu clan and Yin clan's bet, ranked first and second. Thought the crowd. After the 4 geniuses and Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui finished, the crowd turned to the others. Time passed, and more of them finished their weapons, but most of them only made level 2 weapons. By now the first 5 winners were already known. If the crowd wasn't wrong, the ranking list would be Yin Feng's team, then Mu Lin Shui's team, then Hen Chang Tian, then Ge Qingfeng, and then Si Man Nan. Of course, those who were the most impatient were the members of the Yin clan. They were certain that the 9-headed snake fire was theirs. Lin Shui, are you ready to join my clan? Asked Yin Feng, smiling indifferently. Mu Lin Shui glanced at him and smiled coldly. You're still dreaming? Hee. Our clans have an agreement and you can't go against it. Try if you dare though, said Yin Feng, glancing at the clans. He knew that since Mu Lin Shui had ranked second, the Mu clan might have some ideas, so would have to put some pressure on them. Many members of the Mu clan had mixed feelings. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't go against the agreement, and after joining Goldfire Tower, Yin Feng would try to get his revenge against them. Lin Feng glanced at Yin Feng and frowned. He found Yin Feng ridiculous as he said indifferently, Yin Feng, since when are you a referee for the tournament? Yin Feng glanced at Lin Feng and frowned. I've never said that. Since you haven't, why do you already consider yourself as the champion of the tournament? The professors of Goldfire Tower haven't said anything concerning the ranking yet, said Lin Feng in a calm and serene way. Yin Feng was surprised, but he smiled at Lin Feng and said, do you think your weapon could be of higher quality than mine? Of course, said Lin Feng. Yin Feng smiled. He was amused, so he replied, I like your sense of humor. We'll see, said Lin Feng stubbornly. Mu Lin Shui's eyes twinkled as she looked at Lin Feng. Actually, she didn't know how powerful their weapon was. She didn't even know if it was better than Yin Feng's weapon. But Lin Feng seemed confident. That guy is really confident, I wonder why, said Yin Feng's future teacher, smiling in a cold way. Some time passed and finally, the 8 hours were over. Many people looked happy, while some looked desperate. The 7 professors in purple clothes all walked forwards at the same time. They had to discuss the ranking. If they didn't agree on something, the professor in the golden purple clothes would act as a referee. Everybody, let me tell you what I think. The 10th one should be him, do you agree? Said one of the professors, pointing at a young man in black clothes. The 6 others nodded in agreement. All right, so we agree, said the professor. Then he smiled at the young man and said, congratulations, you ranked 10th. You may take 3 steps forwards. Thank you, masters, said the young man nodding. He had ranked 10th, that was great. Chapter 1641. The champion. Many people were nervous. After all, those young people represented their groups in Goldfire City. After that, the professors also announced who had ranked 9th, 8th, 7th and 6th. When it was time to announce who had ranked 6th and 7th, the professors started to disagree. When this happened, if only one professor didn't agree, their opinion didn't count. But if 2 or more professors disagreed, then everyone had to reconsider. For those who had ranked between 6th and 10th, the professor in golden clothes didn't need to interject. With that, it was time to decide who had ranked 5th. Seaman Nan ranked 5th in my opinion. Do you all agree? Asked one of the professors in purple. Seaman Nan shivered. He obviously wasn't happy. I agree. I agree too. I think Seaman Nan should rank 4th. He made wings which can make a cultivator both extremely fast and defense-heavy, said one of them. I think so too. He should rank 4th, said another one. The professors couldn't agree again. Maybe those who had objected only thought highly of him, because they wanted to recruit him. Maybe there was a connection between them and Seaman Na, just like Yin Feng had with his future teacher. Of course, maybe they really thought that Seaman Nan had done better than Guqing Feng. All right, we need someone else's opinion then, said the cultivator, turning to the 3 professors in golden red clothes. We all agree that Seaman Nan should rank 5th, said one of the professors in the golden red clothes. All right, said the professor in purple clothes, nodding. Since the professors in golden red clothes agreed, it was decided. Of course, if the 3 professors in the golden red clothes hadn't agreed, they would have needed the opinion of the professor in the golden purple clothes. The rules were fair, even if the professors had their personal opinions. Of course, they couldn't let the professor in golden purple clothes decide everything on his own. If he liked someone, then he might favor them, just as these purple-clothed judges had. Man Nan was disappointed that he had only ranked 5th. The 4th one should be Guqing Feng. Do you all agree? Asked the professor. This time everyone agreed. After all, Hen Changtian's tower was extraordinary. Besides, he had made it alone. Guqing Feng understood the skill that was required. The 3rd one had to be Hen Changtian. Even though he had made a weapon on his own, Yin Feng and Mu Lin Shue's team had each made level 4 imperial weapons, so Hen Changtian couldn't compete with them. Who's going to rank 2nd? Thought the crowd. They're high from the anticipation. They were almost sure that Lin Feng was going to rank 2nd and Yin Feng 1st. But since Lin Feng sounded so confident, they couldn't wait to hear what the professors had to say. All the members from the Yin clan stood up. The next sentence would be decisive. The members of the Mu clan also all stood up. You each made level 4 imperial weapons. Yin Feng's cloud was wider, which might mean that his weapon is of higher quality. However, Mu Lin Shue's weapon is strange. I can't understand it properly. It's probably because of the deployment marks. Show us the power of your weapons, and I'll decide after, said the professor in purple clothes. No, Yin Feng's weapon is of better quality, so he is the champion. Just tell us what you think, and we can talk about it. Why make things so complicated? Said Yin Feng's future teacher. Actually, he was also curious. He didn't understand Lin Feng's deployment marks either. I want to understand the power of their weapons clearly. That's the only way to make a proper decision, said the professor. What do you think? It would be fair to see how powerful their weapons are first, said the professor who thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shue. The others agreed, so they said, Yin Feng, you start first. All right. Yin Feng nodded and condensed cosmic energies in his hands which powered his sword. Attack! Shouted Yin Feng. His sword dashed to the skies, making the sky turn red. Then a terrifying blood strength fell, along with a furious, bloodthirsty dragon, which was emitting large fire jettisons. Mu Lin Shue and her assistant, show us the power of your spear, said the professor to Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shue. I'll do it, said Lin Feng. He grabbed the spear firmly and slowly raised it to his shoulder. Then he shouted in a deep voice, Go! Bzzz. The spear shook and suddenly disappeared. Kacha! A destructive strength filled the sky. The spear instantly appeared in the sky, and it was still rising. An illusion? Surprisingly, the crowd had lost track of the spear before it had reappeared higher up in the sky. That weapon was very dangerous. It's hard to say what level of cultivator could be killed by it. Eventually, the spear came back to Lin Feng's hand. Then he turned to the judges and said, My spear is incredible in terms of attack, speed, and illusion. It's better than his sword, and I'm sure that you must understand that now. The crowd was speechless. Lin Feng was saying that his spear was better than Yin Feng's sword in all aspects? Ridiculous. You're talking nonsense. shouted Yin Feng furiously. The cloud is a sign of quality, and yours wasn't as good. Yin Feng should rank first, said Yin Feng's future teacher indifferently. I think that Mu Lin Shui and her assistant should rank first, said the teacher who had made a bet with him. What do you think? Asked the professor in purple to the others. They had each made an incredible weapon, both a sword and a spear. Yin Feng's sword had created a better cloud, and it was incredible in terms of defense, seeing how it could summon a fire dragon. Lin Feng's weapon was incredibly dangerous. Its cloud wasn't very dense, but it was terrifying. I think Yin Feng should win. I think Mu Lin Shui should win. The 6 other professors said what they thought. 3 thought Yin Feng should win, and 3 thought Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng should win. The main professor still had to say what he thought. Our 3 colleagues will have to decide then, said the professor, looking at the professors in golden red clothes. We all disagree too. Our master can decide who the champion is, said a professor in golden red clothes. The crowd frowned. The professors in golden red clothes had also disagreed. The suspense. Mu Qingning looked nervous too. She was fixedly staring at the professor in the golden purple clothes. He slowly rose up in the air and looked at Lin Feng and Yin Feng. Then he smiled indifferently and said, You are both outstanding, but there can be only one champion. I have to make a decision, so please don't be angry, even if you're second. So, I say that Yin Feng's team ranks second, said the professor in golden purple clothes. Yin Feng ranks second? What? Congratulations, said the level 9 professor to Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. Mu Lin Shui looked dumbstruck but happy. She looked at Lin Feng. They had won. They had won the tournament. Yin Feng's eyes were filled with flames of fury. He looked furious as he said, I, Yin Feng, don't accept this decision. Chapter 1642. Do you accept? The members of the Mu clan didn't know how to react. But they knew that Mu Lin Shui had only won because of Lin Feng. Mu Qingning was astonished. She glanced at Lin Feng and thought, if Lin Feng had helped me, what kind of weapon could we make? However, people didn't have time to think too much. Yin Feng had already said he didn't accept the results. Of course Yin Feng didn't accept that decision. He had already considered himself the winner. Many people also considered him the winner. In the end though, the professor in the golden purple clothes said that Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui were the winners. Master, the Yin clan doesn't accept the results either, said the leader of the Yin clan bowing. He didn't dare act too aggressively. The teacher looked at the leader of the Yin clan and said indifferently, What you mean to say is that I should listen to you to decide who the winner is. Master, we wouldn't dare, said the leader of the Yin clan shaking. Even though he really meant that, he didn't want to say it openly. If you don't dare, then what exactly do you mean when you say you don't accept the results? Asked the professor in golden purple clothes indifferently. Master, I just want the tournament to be fair. Maybe we could compare the 2 weapons in a fight, said Yin Feng bowing. He was furious, but he didn't dare act too recklessly. He couldn't afford infuriating the level 9 professor. That's a joke. Using weapons to compare strength is ridiculous. Do you think that a high-level emperor with a level 1 imperial weapon couldn't kill a low-level emperor with a level 9 imperial weapon? Said the professor in a cold way. Weapons represented an external strength. Even though they had made level 4 imperial weapons and could threaten medium-level emperors, that was just an expression. In a real fight, a medium-level emperor could probably still kill them. Even if a Zun cultivator had a level 9 imperial weapon, couldn't do much against an emperor. Yin Feng said he wanted to fight against Lin Feng to compare their weapons because his level and Lin Feng's were different. Therefore, the master in golden purple clothes didn't even consider that as a possibility. Master, I don't mind trying, said Lin Feng. The level 9 master looked at Lin Feng and then at Yin Feng and said, Since he agrees, you have one chance. Thank you very much, master, said Yin Feng excitedly. Then, he suddenly turned to Lin Feng and looked at him in a cold way. Surprisingly, Lin Feng had taken the initiative to accept the battle. How ridiculous. Yin Feng was holding his long sword, while releasing fire cosmic energy, making it fuse together with his sword. Lin Feng was holding his spear in his right hand, but looked rather calm. Some destructive qi was slowly emerging from it. Everybody will see that I, Yin Feng, deserve to be proclaimed champion of the tournament. Yin Feng released more fire, causing his sword to whistle. Then he jumped forwards. Lin Feng didn't say anything. Talking was pointless at that moment. The only thing that mattered was strength. Wind chant. Lin Feng suddenly moved like the wind, turning into a shadow as his spear started rotating. Attack! Shouted Yin Feng furiously, raising his long sword. At the same time, Lin Feng threw his silver spear. It instantly tore apart the terrifying red dragon, making it explode into countless pieces in every direction. Then, Lin Feng suddenly shook his head and his spear disappeared. Slash! Yin Feng sensed danger coming at him from every direction. He was even worried for his life now. Go! Yin Feng shook his head and threw his sword. With it, a metallic sound rang, and the destructive energies turned into a terrifying tornado. Even with this, the red dragon continued breaking apart, pushing Yin Feng's sword back. Then Yin Feng sensed a horrible pain as his sword moved back towards his chest. He groaned with pain and blood splashed. He was propelled backwards by a few thousand meters. His face was deathly pale, and he looked confused, but he tried to ignore the pain. He had lost though. His sword had been pushed back by Lin Feng's spear. This proved that the level 9 professor had made the right decision. Now there was no question that Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui were the champions. I like your sense of humor, Yin Feng. Even before the end of the tournament, you firmly believed that you were the champion, said Lin Feng, smiling indifferently. The professor who thought highly of Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui smiled. He had won his bet, so he turned to the professor next to him and said, "You also asked me for my technique before the end of the tournament. I too like your sense of humor. It's time you give me your technique." His interlocutor's mouth twitched, his heart was pounding. The professor who liked Lin Feng was making fun of him. You refused my decision, then you wanted to fight. What about now? Do you accept my decision now? Asked the level 9 professor to Yin Feng in a cold way. Initially, he didn't have anything against Yin Feng. Ranking second wasn't bad either. But Yin Feng and the Yin clan had questioned his decision and hadn't given him face. He didn't need to give Yin Feng face. Yin Feng was only a young man, while he was a level 9 professor. Yin Feng shivered. What could he say now? Now, he had to talk again, and say if he accepted the decision or not. I have a headache now, thought Yin Feng's future teacher. It was fine to be arrogant when you were young, but they still had to be careful. Yin Feng had acted arrogantly in front of someone whom he should have respected. Chapter 1643. Prizes. The members from the Yin clan felt sorry for him. If he had lost against Hen Chong Tian, it would have been fine. But he had lost against Mu Lin Shui from the Mu clan. I lost. Finally, Yin Feng took a deep breath and admitted he lost. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, he was looking at Lin Feng in a cold way. He had told Lin Feng not to get close to Mu Lin Shui several times. And not only had Lin Feng gotten close to her, he had also developed an intimate relationship with her. That's all, said Mu Lin Shui. Yin Feng, you lost. So in the future, I never want to hear you call me your girlfriend again. Mu Lin Shui, you can't escape from me, said Yin Feng. Before the tournament, you thought you were the winner. You even questioned the master of Goldfire Tower. But now you're just a shameless loser, and that's all you'll ever be, said Mu Lin Shui mockingly. Yin Feng groaned coldly. He looked at the level 9 teacher and bowed. Then he said respectfully, I offended you. Please forgive me. I am too young and impulsive. Enough, said the professor. He didn't care about young people that much anyways. He looked at the crowd and said, the tournament is over. Now it's time for the winners to get their prizes. Everybody stand up. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui moved forwards. Yin Feng was standing next to them. The prize for the winner of the tournament is fire, said the level 9 professor. He shook his hand and suddenly, an imperial fire snake appeared. If you want to modify that snake, remember that you'll need the help of a medium-level or high-level emperor, otherwise, you could get hurt, said the level 9 professor to Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. The level 9 professor sealed the snake in a purple empty space and smiled at Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. To whom should give I the prize? To him. Give it to her. Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng talked at the same time, making them laugh. Everybody was speechless. If it had been anyone else, they would have fought for it. You should take it. We only won because of you, said Mu Lin Shui to Lin Feng, smiling. He had helped her so much, and now he even refused the prize. Mu Lin Shui was still confused. Why did Lin Feng do so much for her? Lin Feng shrugged and said, You should use it. Your current fire is holding you back the most from fabricating better weapons. But you also control fire, and it could make you stronger, said Mu Lin Shui, shaking her head. You don't know everything about me. I'm quite strong without it, said Lin Feng, smiling in a gentle way. Mu Lin Shui just rolled her eyes. All right, I've never seen two people like you. Who is going to take it? Asked the level 9 professor, smiling. Mu Lin Shui wanted to say something, but Lin Feng said, If you refuse again, I'm leaving. Mu Lin Shui was speechless, but then she nodded and took the fire. That armor is a level 7 imperial weapon. Who wants it? Asked the level 9 professor to Yin Feng and his assistant. Me, said Yin Feng impolitely. Then he immediately took the armor. After that, the professor continued distributing the prizes. After that, he took out a few gold fire tower talismans. Each had a fire tower carved on them. He distributed them and said, To those who have this talisman, if you're in gold fire tower, and you break it, a strong cultivator will immediately come to your aid. Alright, as we said, the top 3 participants can choose a teacher in golden red clothes. They'll be your teacher for at least a year, said the level 9 professor, smiling. Then, the 3 professors in golden red clothes walked forwards. One of them nodded at Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. Lin Feng, we can choose that one, said Mu Lin Shui. She had seen him nod, so she bowed in front of him. Haha, I would be happy to teach them, said the professor, smiling. Yin Feng chose the one who had noticed him as well. Then, it was Hen Changtian's turn. He was already a member of the Gold Fire Tower, so choosing a teacher was less dramatic for him. And you, said the level 9 professor to the 7 professors in purple clothes. He had told them that if they wished, they could recruit some disciples as well. The professors then chose some disciples. Yin Feng, said Yin Feng's teacher. You lost this time, but it doesn't mean much. You're a great weapon craftsman. Yin Feng nodded and bowed before his teacher. I feel honored to have you as a teacher. Alright, I'll teach you how to make better weapons. My colleagues in golden red clothes will also help you, said the professor, smiling. He sounded happy. Even if Yin Feng had lost to Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui, he had ranked second. Show me your technique. Everybody heard our bet, said the professor in purple clothes who had bet for Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui winning. Relax, I promised it, so I will do it, said Yin Feng's teacher. Alright, I'm waiting then, said the professor, smiling. He then smiled at Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui and said, Do you want to become my disciples? Lin Shui, said Lin Feng. Mu Lin Shui was smiling at all of these new opportunities. Lin Feng knew what she was thinking when he saw her smile. He looked at the teacher and said, Master, I already have a teacher and I would like to stay with them. Besides, I'm not going to stay in Goldfire City for too much longer. Lin Shui would love to be your disciple though, if you'd accept her. No wonder. Your teacher must be an incredible deployment spellcaster, said the professor, nodding. Lin Feng had incredible deployment spells, so his teacher was probably incredible. Lin Feng couldn't join them, which was a pity, but Mu Lin Shui wasn't bad either. She was worth having as a disciple. If you accept, I would be happy to have you as a disciple, said the professor, smiling at Mu Lin Shui. Thank you, teacher, said Mu Lin Shui, bowing happily. Now she was officially a disciple of Goldfire Tower, and she had a teacher. The Mu clan wouldn't be able to do anything to her. Her life was finally in her own hands. Mu Lin Shui stretched out her arm and grabbed Lin Feng's hands. Lin Feng smiled at her and said, Everything is all right now. Indeed, everything's good now, said Mu Lin Shui, nodding. The other professors then chose their disciples. Only a few of them refused to become a professor's disciple. Sister Lin Shui is now a member of Goldfire Tower. She has a teacher, and she will even learn from a teacher in golden red clothes, thought Mu Qingying, sighing. The difference between her and Mu Lin Shui was widening. The members of the Mu clan didn't know what to think. They didn't dare face Mu Lin Shui anymore. Chapter 1644. That's all? Little boy, are you sure you don't want to join Goldfire Tower? Asked the level 9 professor, smiling at Lin Feng. The reason why he had decided Lin Feng was the champion was because of his deployment spells. He could see that Lin Feng's deployment spells were powerful. Besides, he could tell that Lin Feng would become stronger in the future. I'm sure, Master, replied Lin Feng smiling. No problem. Even though you don't want to join the Goldfire Tower, you can come and leave as you wish. You're a permanent guest of honor here, and the rules here don't apply to you, said the professor. Lin Feng smiled. How could he refuse such an offer? A permanent guest of honor? The professor wanted to befriend Lin Feng, which made everyone else feel jealous. Yin Feng pulled a long face. He should have been the champion of that tournament, and now everyone was looking at Lin Feng, and not at him. Even the level 9 professor preferred Lin Feng over him. Master, thank you. I wouldn't refuse such an invitation, said Lin Feng smiling. He was now a permanent guest of honor at Goldfire Tower. Haha, you're the youngest permanent guest of honor at the Goldfire Tower, and I don't even know your name. Lin Feng, said Lin Feng smiling. Lin Feng, if you need anything, feel free to ask me, said the professor nodding. Then he walked to some other people. Mu Lin Shui pulled on Lin Feng's hand and smiled. The youngest guest of honor of Goldfire Tower. After the members of the Goldfire Tower chose their disciples, many people from powerful groups started choosing their new disciples, many of which landed next to Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui. Lin Feng, what do you think? Asked Mu Lin Shui to Lin Feng. It was as if Lin Feng had become her personal advisor. If those people don't impose their rules on you, you should accept, said Lin Feng to Mu Lin Shui. Then, he looked at everyone and said, everybody thinks highly of us. I, Lin Feng, won't be staying here for too long, but thank you for your kindness. Concerning Lin Shui, it's only a matter of time. Alright, I understand, Lin Feng. If you have time, please come to Wine Valley as our guest, said an old man smiling. The others also expressed their opinions. Lin Feng nodded back to them all. Thank you. If I have the opportunity, I'll come and see you. Then those people left. Lin Shui, said someone at that moment. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui turned around and saw that the leader of the Mu clan was talking to them. Lin Shui, you are the champion of the tournament, and we are extremely proud of you. In the future, we'll do everything we can to make you stronger, said the leader of the clan. Mu Lin Shui's social status was now different. She was a member of Goldfire Tower, and she had a direct teacher. She could even consult the professors in the golden red clothes. As the leader of the Mu clan, he knew he had to repair their relationship. Proud? I thought you wanted me to go to the Yin clan? If I weren't the champion of the tournament, you wouldn't be saying that, said Mu Lin Shui mockingly. Lin Shui, you should understand the difficult position the Mu clan faced, said her grandfather. Grandpa, said Mu Lin Shui. He was good to her, and he had always tried to help her. Concerning the difficulties the Mu clan faced, she knew what he meant. Lin Feng, tell us what you think, said Mu Lin Shui's grandfather. He knew that she was stubborn, but she still listened to Lin Feng. Lin Feng hadn't expected the old man to ask him for help. He viewed things from outside, so he was a bit wiser. For Mu Lin Shui, staying in the Mu clan wasn't a good thing at all. And even if she went away, she'd remain a member of the Mu clan. Lin Feng thought about Muyi, but he didn't know what Muyi wanted. Lin Shui, listen to your heart, said Lin Feng to Mu Lin Shui smiling. Mu Lin Shui nodded. She knew what he meant. She turned to her uncle and said, back then, my father was expelled from the clan. Instead, I want him to be expelled and my father to come back. She was pointing at her uncle, who instantly turned pale. Making Muyi come back? Even though her uncle had done all he could to get Muyi expelled from the clan, expelling Muyi was a decision from the whole clan. If he had decided alone, Muyi wouldn't have been expelled. Mu Lin Shui wanted to vent her anger, so she chose him. Lin Shui, he's your uncle, said the leader of the clan. Do you think telling me that is useful? You know how evil he is to me. If you don't want to expel him, then I'll expel myself. said Mu Lin Shui. The leader of the Mu clan remained silent and then said, "All right, I accept." "Master." Mu Lin Shui's uncle looked horrified. "Don't call me master. You're no longer a member of the clan," said the leader suddenly. Even Lin Feng was happy with this decision. "Thank you very much, master," said Mu Lin Shui smiling. Her uncle was furious. He glanced at everybody, but nobody defended him. "I'm going back to the clan to get some things." "Mu Lai Mu you were going," said Mu Lin Shui's uncle to his children. At the same time, all the professors from Goldfire Tower were standing above them in the air. They had all seen what had just happened. In a few dozen years, those young people will become stronger. Some of them might become pillars of support for the Goldfire Tower, said the level 9 professor smiling. Unfortunately, Lin Feng doesn't want to join the Goldfire Tower. Maybe he just wanted to help Mu Lin Shui? He isn't interested in weapons, he didn't even want the fire. In the future, Yin Feng and Hen Chang Tian will become prominent figures in Goldfire Tower, said Yin Feng's teacher. The level 9 professor didn't look so happy to hear that. He really didn't like Yin Feng. Many people were now looking at Yin Feng. Lin Feng had refused to join any group, so they wanted to try their luck with Yin Feng. Yin Feng looked at Lin Feng and smiled indifferently. Lin Feng is the champion of the tournament, but we still don't know how strong he really is. Many people were surprised. Yin Feng was still angry? Lin Feng, Mu Lin Shui, you both won the tournament, but maybe we should have a battle without using imperial weapons. I'll even fight against both of you at the same time, said Yin Feng sharply. Mu Lin Shui frowned. Yin Feng really was a scumbag. He controlled cosmic energies and his fire was terrifying. It would be difficult for Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui to defeat him. Lin Feng looked angry. It seemed that he would have to teach him a lesson again. Chapter 1645. Trying to kill Yin Feng. Many people looked at Lin Feng and Yin Feng. Yin Feng had thought he'd be the champion of the tournament, and now he was very unhappy. Although he was childish, Lin Feng and Yin Feng were both at the same level, so it'd be a humiliation to them if they didn't accept Yin Feng's request. Lin Feng looked at Yin Feng's indifferent smile, and then the corner of Lin Feng's lips curled upwards. He said, "I don't like exchanging views on cultivation. I only do battles to the death." An eerie silence filled the stadium. Some people even looked excited. Battle to death. Goldfire Tower protected the 10 best participants from the tournament, but if 2 of them challenged each other and accepted the fight, then nobody would interject. Of course, you don't need to fight against the both us. Just one of us is enough for the likes of you. It's best not to overestimate yourself, said Lin Feng laughing. Yin Feng's pupils narrowed. He knew that Lin Feng was trying to pull him in. This time Lin Feng is taking the initiative. "If you don't dare, then never bark in front of me again. Otherwise people will make fun of you," said Lin Feng mockingly after he saw Yin Feng remaining silent. Mu Lin Shui looked at Lin Feng. That guy. She knew Lin Feng's deployment spells were powerful, but she still didn't know how strong he really was. She also didn't know what abstruse energies Lin Feng understood. She had seen him use a few at the maximum level already, including immortal and fire energies. Yin Feng had taken the initiative to challenge Lin Feng, so how could he refuse? He jumped forwards and shouted furiously, "Come here!" Lin Feng looked delighted. Mu Lin Shui had ranked first, while Yin Feng had ranked second, and in the future, they'd be in Goldfire Tower together, so he could pose a threat to her. This way, Lin Feng could take care of one more concern he had before he left. Lin Feng looked at the level 9 professor and said, "Master, Yin Feng challenged me, and I accept his request. If I die, it'll be my fault, and I won't blame Goldfire Tower for not protecting us." "All right," replied the professor nodding. "Yin Feng, are you sure you want to fight as well?" asked the level 9 professor. "If I die, it will have nothing to do with Goldfire Tower. We agreed to a battle to the death, so this is personal," said Yin Feng. The members of the Yin clan were frowning. They knew how strong Yin Feng was, but Lin Feng sounded confident. "All right, since you two agreed, then there's no problem," said the professor indifferently. The 3 professors in golden red clothes, and the 7 professors in purple clothes, were also interested in the fight. Yin Feng looked at Lin Feng, stretching out his hand, and exuding fire from the palm of his hand. His eyes were quickly filled with murder. He was thinking that even if Lin Feng had hidden his real strength, he was still going to kill him. Black. Yin Feng spat out blood onto the fire in his hand, making it become larger and brighter. Arg! Yin Feng shouted furiously, and then 3 flames appeared behind him, all of them turning into an ocean of flames. Allanite fire. Yin Feng shook his hand, and terrifying fire cosmic energy appeared. How strong, thought some people. The Yin clan was a clan who valued fire, and Yin Feng's spirit was made of fire. I wouldn't have thought that Yin Feng's Allanite fire would be so strong. I was worried for nothing. He will definitely kill Lin Feng, thought the leader of the Yin clan, smiling. Mu Lin Shui looked extremely worried. Yin Feng could already threaten emperors with a regular attack, let alone a level 9 Zunqi cultivator. Lin Feng looked calm though. He was simply looking at Yin Feng, also thinking that if Yin Feng's fire reached him, he would die. You will die, shouted Yin Feng as he started running forwards, leaving a trail of fire behind him. Die, shouted Yin Feng. 3 fireballs flew through the sky, turning into ferocious fire dragons. Lin Feng couldn't face him head-on, so he moved like the wind and dodged. By the time the 3 fireballs arrived, Lin Feng had already disappeared. How fast, thought the crowd. It wouldn't be easy for Yin Feng to kill Lin Feng with that speed. Yin Feng immediately gave chase, surrounding Lin Feng once more with an ocean of flames. But again, Lin Feng disappeared before the attack reached him. Some time passed, and there was fire littered everywhere. Yin Feng stopped moving and shouted furiously, "That's how you fight? You're just a coward." Yin Feng's fire is terrifying, but if I can't kill him in one strike, the Yin clan might intervene to save him, thought Lin Feng. After thinking about it for a moment, his gradually became pitch black, and he looked emotionless like a demon. Yin Feng noticed these changes, so he continued running after Lin Feng, but still unable to catch up. At that moment, Yin Feng's realized that Lin Feng wasn't dodging this time. He was running towards him. This is my chance to kill him, thought Yin Feng. Allanite fire. He condensed fire in his right hand, and a vortex of fire appeared. That attack could kill, or at least badly injure a low-level emperor. Stop, shouted Lin Feng, releasing a force which was multiplied by 1,000, which quickly surrounded Yin Feng. Force multiplied by 1,000, that bastard, thought Yin Feng, petrified. He looked at Lin Feng, and looked directly into his pitch-black pupils. Death, said Lin Feng. This time he released demonic and cursing energies. Yin Feng's face turned rigid, his eyes turned black, and death chi started invading his body. His fire greatly weakened at this point. Lin Feng shook his hand and shattering holy marks formed. Explode, shouted Lin Feng furiously. The marks on the ground quickly moved towards Yin Feng. Oh no! The members of the Yin clan suddenly looked desperate. Yin Feng, shouted the leader of the Yin clan furiously. He wanted to force Yin Feng back to his senses. At the same time, he started running towards Yin Feng to save him. He wasn't the only one. Several strong cultivators from the Yin clan also followed. They agreed to fight, said Mu Lin Shui's teacher, smiling coldly. He jumped forwards, wanting to prevent the Yin clan from attacking. Bastard, thought Yin Feng's teacher. That guy surprisingly wanted to let Lin Feng kill Yin Feng. Go, shouted the leader of the Mu clan. The members of the Mu clan jumped forwards too. They also wanted to prevent the members of the Yin clan from intervening. The leader of the Yin clan shouted to make Yin Feng come back to his senses, but the ground under his feet was already collapsing, and Yin Feng's situation was looking bad. His large fireball turned into a gigantic dragon before it exploded, throwing fire out in all directions. Yin Feng raised his head and saw Lin Feng standing above him in the sky. He still had that demonic-like pair of eyes staring at him. No, Yin Feng suddenly shouted. The demonic and cursing energies further corroded his body. Nobody can save you today, said Lin Feng. Then Lin Feng released even more cursing energies making Yin Feng feel like fainting. The ground beneath him started to collapse at this point. Chapter 1646. Celestial Death Curtain. How dare you? The leader of the Yin clan shouted at Lin Feng furiously. However, Lin Feng ignored him. His target was Yin Feng, and wouldn't stop until he was killed. Die! Yin Feng bit his lips, trying to come back to his senses. Suddenly, sharp swords emerged from his body, all of which were imperial weapons he had made. The situation was out of control, and he didn't want to die. You're using imperial weapons? Said Lin Feng. They had both agreed not to use imperial weapons, but without them, Yin Feng was going to die. How could a cultivator accept death, while they still had a way to defend themselves? Lin Feng took out some talismans, and threw them at Yin Feng. Some of them exploded on him, while some of them collided against the imperial weapons. Ah! Yin Feng gave a horrible shriek. The shattering energies had injured his internal organs. Lin Feng moved back after he threw them. Even though he had made those talismans, he didn't want to get caught up in their explosions. By this point Yin Feng's face was deathly pale, and he was overwhelmed with pain. However, Lin Feng didn't stop. He moved like the wind, and continued oppressing him with a force, which was multiplied by 1,000. My force is only multiplied by 900, so I can't resist his force, thought Yin Feng. He was getting desperate now, so he suddenly released even more fire which engulfed himself, turning him into a fire monster. After that, he started to run away, trying to avoid Lin Feng's force. A cloud appeared above them. It was filled with a terrifying strength. What? Lin Feng was surprised. Cosmic energy. The members of the Mu clan and the members of the Yin clan suddenly stopped fighting. They raised their heads and looked at the sky. He's going to break through to the Huangqi layer, thought the crowd. Yin Feng and Lin Feng were both terrifying cultivators, and seeing how Lin Feng kept oppressing Yin Feng was constantly being pushed to his limits. As Yin Feng thought he was going to die, he suddenly understood force even better, and his cosmic energies were already at the maximum level. With those, he was finally going to break through to the Huangqi layer. The cloud of cosmic energies condensed, their energies falling onto Yin Feng's body. Yin Feng's fire cosmic energy began burning more passionately. Even his body seemed like it was going to burn. Yin Feng closed his eyes and raised his head, welcoming the cosmic energies were cleansing his body. Good, that's the genius of our clan. The leader of the Yin clan looked excited. It seems like we should be grateful, said the leader of the Yin clan, looking at Lin Feng. If Lin Feng hadn't threatened Yin Feng, it would have been difficult for him to break through to the Huangqi layer. But even if we're grateful, things are not over. The battle must end, said the leader of the Yin clan. Of course, he meant that Yin Feng and Lin Feng still needed to kill one or the other. You can stop the battle now, said Mu Lin Shui's teacher indifferently. Finish the battle? Do you think the battle can stop only because you want them to stop? They must finish, and there must be a winner, said Yin Feng's teacher coldly. Lin Feng had the advantage, yet you all intervened, and now that Yin Feng has broken through to the Huangqi layer, you want the battle to continue? Do you all hear how ridiculous you are? Said Mu Lin Shui's teacher. I intervened. I admit that I made a mistake, but it has nothing to do with their battle. Since they agreed to it, the battle must finish, said Yin Feng's teacher. Indeed, the battle must continue. How could we stop here? Said the members of the Yin clan, all whom were smiling coldly. Many people looked at Lin Feng, who was still standing in the sky. He was calmly watching as Yin Feng broke through to the Huangqi layer. Seeing someone break through to the Huangqi layer was a mysterious scene, and got Lin Feng thinking. Since he understood several different types of abstruse energies, when he broke through to the Huangqi layer, would several types of cosmic energies enter his body? Finally, Yin Feng opened his eyes and a light made of fire streaked across the sky. It seemed that Lin Feng couldn't use his demonic eyes to deal with him anymore. Lin Feng, you're surprised, right? Said Yin Feng smiling. He had broken through to the Huangqi layer, and he felt good, powerful even. Now kneel down and cripple your own cultivation. Only then will I let you leave, said Yin Feng. He looked proud and arrogant. He had almost forgotten that a moment before he could have died. You're broken through to the Huangqi layer, but I have the feeling that you haven't progressed at all, said Lin Feng, glancing at Yin Feng. Lin Feng had already fought emperors. In Yaoyi Island, he had also learnt from emperors, fighting their emperors millions of times. Even though he had lost or escaped each time, he was confident in his abilities now. Lin Feng, said Mu Lin Shui. She was scared to death. She was still looking very, very nervous, which wasn't surprising because Yin Feng had become an emperor after all. That guy doesn't seem worried, thought Mu Qingying. Didn't he know that there was a huge difference between emperors and Zun cultivators? Bang! Yin Feng took a step forwards, releasing terrifying fire cosmic energies. The sky turned red as he released these energies. Yin Feng, kill him, said the leader of the Yin clan. After releasing all these energies, Yin Feng started running towards Lin Feng again. He raised his hands and his fists turned into two dazzling fireballs made of cosmic energy. Lin Feng shook his hands as demonic lights appeared in the sky, quickly turning into demonic marks which contained terrifying shattering energies. Die, said Yin Feng. His fire surrounded Lin Feng, making him look like a tiny ant inside that fiery mountain. Lin Feng, shouted Mu Lin Shui. Why hadn't Lin Feng dodged? Why? Celestial death curtain, die, said a voice. Lin Feng, who was practically bathing in that ocean of flames, launched pitch-black death energies which collided with the fire. Chapter 1647. Killing an emperor, what kind of power is that? Thought the crowd. Lin Feng still had the strength of the Zunqi layer, but was still competing with Yin Feng, who had broken through to the Huangqi layer. His death energies didn't seem any weaker than Yin Feng's energies. All the emperors from Goldfire Tower were open-mouthed speechless. Lin Feng could resist an emperor's cosmic energies, which meant that he was 100 times stronger than ordinary cultivators of the 9th Zunqi layer. What a guy, thought Mu Lin Shui. She too was speechless. Yin Feng was no exception, he too was speechless. Lin Feng raised his hands and released shattering energies, filling his celestial death curtain with an indestructible strength. The sky shook as the fire cosmic energies broke apart. At the same time, the celestial death curtain seemed like it was also falling apart, but Yin Feng still felt oppressed. Die, said Lin Feng as he raised both of his hands and used his deadly demon punch. Yin Feng's face turned deathly pale. His cosmic energies weren't enough. Great earth destruction, shouted Lin Feng. He moved like the wind and pierced through the fire. Then he continued moving towards Yin Feng. At that moment, Yin Feng couldn't block anymore. He didn't have any strength left. He had just broken through to the Huangqi layer, so how could he die now? A beam of light appeared, causing the space around Yin Feng to distort. He was going to die. Yin Feng had millions of thoughts racing through his mind. In the blink of an eye, he had gone from hell to heaven, and now he was going right back to hell. No, shouted Yin Feng desperately. The members of the Yin clan were astonished. How? How could that happen? Yin Feng had broken through to the Huangqi layer. They couldn't save Yin Feng by this point. Yin Feng's skull started cracking, and then his body exploded. He was dead. Yin Feng's body disappeared, and only Lin Feng remained. He killed an emperor? The crowd remained speechless. This was surreal to them. Crack. The level 9 professor clenched his fists tightly. Lin Feng had killed an emperor, so he knew what that meant. Lin Feng was even more important to them than he had previously thought. In his celestial death curtain, I sensed death, demon, wind, empty space and earth energies. Then in his great earth destruction, I sensed mainly earth energies, but it also contained demon, empty space and thunder energies. Thought the professor, closing his eyes as he tried to remember Lin Feng's attacks. There was no doubt that Lin Feng would probably become a famous emperor in the future. It also meant that after breaking through to the Huangqi layer, he would be able to kill emperors of the same level easily, just like he could kill Zun cultivators of the same level now. Yin Feng's teacher's facial expression was interesting. He looked completely confused. He had just recruited a disciple. Then that disciple broke through to the Huangqi layer. And a few minutes later, his disciple was killed. Mu Lin Shui made friends with the future god. Thought the members of the Mu clan astonished. Lin Shui, Lin Feng is beyond incredible. Mu Qingying had already walked over to Mu Lin Shui. Her eyes were wide open. as if she had just witnessed a miracle. She had never heard of a Zoom cultivator who could kill an emperor, and Lin Feng made it look easy. I didn't know he was so strong. I've never seen him fight before, whispered Mu Lin Shui. Mu Qingying smiled wryly. She remembered her reactions in the past. She felt ridiculous now. Could Lin Feng have joined the Mu clan for her? You dared kill him? Said the leader of the Yin clan furiously. Yin Feng was the most outstanding disciple the Yin clan had. Chapter 1648. Making friends with important people. You killed him? Shouted the leader of the Yin clan furiously. Yin Feng was the most outstanding disciple of the Yin clan. Everyone from the Yin clan were furious. Yin Feng had just broken through to the Huangqi layer. He had become a rising genius, and in the blink of an eye, Lin Feng had killed him. Lin Feng turned to the leader of the Yin clan and smiled amusingly. He's already dead, why do you ask? Said Lin Feng mockingly. The leader of the Yin clan shook his hands, and a gigantic fire hand appeared in the sky, instantly moving towards Lin Feng. Such powerful cosmic strength. Lin Feng frowned, while looking at the fire hand. That hand could kill 10 people at the same time. Lin Feng groaned coldly and moved back. At the same time, he took out the talisman from Goldfire Tower. The level 9 professor groaned coldly and attacked to defend Lin Feng. Terrifying cosmic energies appeared, and the sky shook. With that, the cosmic energies from the leader of the Yin clan exploded and disappeared. Does the Yin clan want to be exterminated? Asked Mu Lin Shui's teacher. The professors in golden red clothes and Mu Lin Shui's teacher moved forwards, all of them looking at the members of the Yin clan. You said you wanted the fight to happen, otherwise Yin Feng wouldn't have died. Now Lin Feng killed Yin Feng in a fair battle, and you dare attack him while still inside Goldfire Tower's territory? Are you trying to provoke Goldfire Tower? Asked a professor in golden red clothes. The Yin clan's leader's face turned deathly pale after he realized what he did. We wouldn't dare. We were just caught up in the moment. Please forgive us, said the leader, lowering his head. Even though he was asking for forgiveness, his eyes were bloodshot with rage. We forgive you this time. It wasn't easy for your clan to finish second at the tournament after all. However, if this happens again, we'll wipe the Yin clan off the map, said the professor the golden purple clothes indifferently. I understand, said the leader of the Yin clan with his head still lowered. Since you understand, then piss off, said the professor in golden purple clothes. With that, the members of the Yin clan then started leaving. A strong cultivator from Sword Mountain looked at the level 9 professor. His eyes looked fierce. Those people from Goldfire Tower are sly. Although Yin Feng could be an asset to Goldfire Tower, Lin Feng was a guest of honor, who would amount to a lot more than Yin Feng. Lin Feng's future potential was limitless, thought the strong cultivator from Sword Mountain. Alright, the tournament is over. Everybody can do whatever they want now, said the level 9 professor to the crowd. Little Feng, if you have time, come to Sword Mountain. This is our talisman. If you need anything, use it to contact us. We will do our best to help you if you need, said the strong cultivator from Sword Mountain to Lin Feng. Everybody was astonished. Sword Mountain and the Yin clan had collaborated for a long time, and now that person was trying to befriend Lin Feng? If the Yin clan saw that, they'd be furious. Thank you very much, master. This is perfect. I already have a good friend, who's like a brother to me, who's a disciple in Sword Mountain. If I have time, I'll come and visit, said Lin Feng smiling. The strong cultivator was surprised and asked, Who's your friend? Wuxia. I hope he's being treated well, said Lin Feng laughing. The strong cultivator smiled and said, All right, I wouldn't have thought that Wuxia was your friend. It's no wonder he's a genius. These days Wuxia is locked up in a room practicing cultivation. He said he wouldn't come out until he became an emperor. I think that he's going to break through to the Huangqi layer soon. Wuxia is very determined. I have no doubt he'll break through to the Huangqi layer, said Lin Feng smiling. Indeed, Wuxia is a great cultivator. Back then, he chased a group of cultivators at the top of the Zunqi layer, including cultivators of the very top of the Zunqi layer. In the end he managed to catch up with them and kill them all. Because he's so merciless, many people in Sword Mountain have noticed him. You guys are beasts, said the strong cultivator smiling. The strong cultivator smiled and said, All right, I'm leaving now. Please come to Sword Mountain when you have time. You and Wuxia will be able to have a few drinks together. Then he left. Lin Feng, this the talisman of our sect. You can come to Tian Yu Feng whenever you want. A few more strong cultivators gave their talismans to Lin Feng. Lin Feng politely took them. Whether or not he'd choose to go, he expressed his appreciation and gave them face. Everybody only pays attention to him, thought Hen Chong Tian, and Guqing Feng smiling wryly. Mu Lin Shui smiled in a gentle way. Everybody had forgotten about her too. Sister Lin Shui, Lin Feng joined the Mu clan for you. So does he like you? Asked Mu Qingying. Mu Lin Shui's smile became rigid. She looked embarrassed and confused because she didn't know either. She shook her head and whispered, I don't know what he wants. Well, Sister Lin Shui, did you fall in love with him? Asked Mu Qingying smiling. Mu Lin Shui blushed. She didn't look at Mu Qingying's eyes for she was too shy. You spent so much time together and he's so outstanding. If you fell in love with him, it would only be normal, whispered Mu Qingying after she saw Lin Shui's reaction. Lin Shui, said a voice at that moment. Mu Lin Shui turned around to see Mu Yi. Father. Mu Lin Shui hadn't seen him for a long time. Lin Shui, congratulations, said Mu Yi, smiling in a gentle way. He had made the right decision in asking Lin Feng for help. You decided to leave back then, so why did you come back? Asked Mu Lin Shui in a cold way. She was blaming her father for leaving her in such a difficult situation. Even though he had been expelled, he shouldn't have left like that. Mu Yi smiled wryly and said, Lin Shui, I know you're angry at me, but I didn't give up since then. I missed you and I really wanted to help you. Help me to do what? You only came back now that everything's fine, said Mu Lin Shui. Her face was red from anger. Lin Shui, Uncle Mu Yi really wanted to help you, said Lin Feng in a gentle way, walking to them. Mu Lin Shui was suddenly confused. Lin Feng called her father uncle? Lin Feng, you. Indeed, Uncle Mu Yi took me to Goldfire City to help you. I didn't know about Goldfire City before, and I didn't know about the tournament either, said Lin Feng. Mu Lin Shui was still red, but not from anger. She looked at her father, having understood everything now. Her father had asked Lin Feng to join the Mu clan. Chapter 1649, Goldfire Tower's territory, why didn't you tell me? Lin Shui asked Lin Feng and Mu Yi. Lin Shui, I told Lin Feng not to tell you anything. You have a bad temper. So if you had known that I had sent Lin Feng, you would have only gotten angry, said Mu Yi smiling. But now everything is fine. You and Lin Feng are close to each other, aren't you? Mu Lin Shui remained silent for a few seconds. Then Lin Feng walked closer to her and smiled. Uncle Mu Yi has been studying deployment spells very hard these past few years. And after getting to know you, I understood that all his effort was for you. But then he met me and had asked me to come instead of him. You understand why he did all that, right? Mu Lin Shui raised her head and saw Lin Feng's gentle smile. Finally she nodded and said, Father. Mu Yi looked sad and happy at the same time. He smiled at Lin Feng. Mu Yi, we've been treated you so poorly. The Mu clan owes you an apology, said the leader of the Mu clan to Mu Yi. I understand, master, said Mu Yi nodding. Good, let's go back to the clan then. Lin Shui is now a member of Goldfire Tower, so she probably wants to go there now, said the leader of the Mu clan. All right. Mu Yi knew why he had to go back. They also understood that Mu Yi had made Lin Feng join the Mu clan, so if they were good to Mu Yi, they'd also be friends with Lin Feng. Lin Feng, please take care of Lin Shui, said Mu Yi, smiling in a deep and meaningful way. Then he looked at Lin Feng and smiled. You look really cute together. Haha, I'm off. Then, Mu Yi left with the other members of the Mu clan. Lin Feng, don't listen to my dad. Sister Lin Shui, I also think that you're a perfect match. I'm off, said Mu Qingying laughing. Then, she left with the other members of the Mu clan as well. Lin Feng watched as Mu Qingying and Mu Xiao left. Then he glanced at Mu Xiao indifferently, making him shudder in fear. But Lin Feng didn't cause any trouble. Mu Qingying already understood what Mu Xiao had done, so she could deal with him on her own. The crowd dispersed, leaving only the professors of Goldfire Tower left. Mu Lin Shue's teacher approached her and smiled. Mu Lin Shue, you obtained the 9-headed snake fire, so I'll help you modify it. I think your weapon crafting will improve a lot with it. Thank you very much, teacher, said Mu Lin Shue smiling. She couldn't wait to use the fire. If my colleagues in the golden red clothes could teach you their ways of controlling fire, then it'd be even more perfect, said her teacher. A teacher in golden red clothes walked towards them at that moment and said, I'd be happy to help her, of course. Thank you, master, said Mu Lin Shue. Don't forget about our bet, said Mu Lin Shue's teacher to Yin Feng's teacher. Lin Feng, come and have a walk inside Goldfire Tower. If you changed your mind, you can still become one of our disciples, said the professor in golden purple clothes while smiling. Lin Feng nodded politely. Thank you, master. Let's go. Let's show all the new disciples our territory as well, said the professor. Everybody nodded and then they followed. The gate to the tower was gigantic and possessed a magnificent golden gleam. They crossed the gate and suddenly, the landscape changed like night and day. From outside, I thought the chi wasn't that great, and that it would be small, but actually it's another small world, thought Lin Feng. That small world was filled with fire cosmic energy, practically rolling in waves. One could also hear hammer sounds in the distance. You should mentally prepare yourselves for what'll come next. All the disciples from Goldfire Tower are weapon manufacturers who practice non-stop every day. That means you'll have to hammer weapons every day, said the professor in golden purple clothes. Everybody nodded, they already knew that. Of course, you have to become stronger to make more powerful weapons, so Goldfire Tower provides its disciples with all sorts of things. Prizes, cosmic energies, deployment spell, ancient scriptures, said the professor. Let's go and see. They continued walking through the small world, soon arriving in another empty space. There were many pavilions and lofty buildings, each building possessing a different chi. Earth chi, thought Lin Feng, glancing at a tower. Indeed, that's the Earth Tower. We don't only cultivate fire chi in Goldfire Tower, there are also earth, ice, wind, life and death towers, explained the professor. The world of cultivation is vast, and Goldfire City is only the tip of the iceberg, thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng, you're a guest of honor here, so you can use all the towers as you wish. You should spend some time here and practice. You can also stay here forever, I wouldn't mind, said the professor laughing. He knew that Lin Feng knew several types of energies, so those towers were very useful for him. Chapter 1650. The legendary Holy City. A few professors took Lin Feng to several towers, and then they left, allowing Lin Feng to do what he wanted. After they left, Lin Feng picked a tower, and chose the 3rd floor, of which there were 9. The atmosphere was distorted inside the tower. A heavy energy surrounded Lin Feng as soon as he walked in. Even though he was seated, he still felt heavily oppressed. He had chosen the Earth Tower first. Lin Feng's Earth abstruse energy had already reached the maximum abstruse level, but he hadn't started learning cosmic energies yet. To understand Earth cosmic energy, he had to truly be one with the Earth. Fire cosmic energy was brutal and aggressive, while Earth cosmic energy was heavy. Those towers must have been built by some incredible cultivators, thought Lin Feng. He raised his head and looked at the other floors. If he continued to go up, the energies would get denser and heavier. I can't understand Earth cosmic energy yet, but I could try some of the other energies to see if I can understand them better, thought Lin Feng, standing up. Then he left the tower. Some time passed, and Lin Feng visited all the towers. He didn't waste any time. He had already spent a lot of time studying deployment spells, so now he needed to improve his cultivation again. He had to break through to the Huangqi layer. Time passed as Lin Feng studied all sorts of energies. Without him noticing, half a year passed. At that moment, at the top of the fire tower, 2 people were sitting there and cultivating. One of them was wearing purple clothes and was a level 7 professor. The other one wore a pale dress and drew a lot of attention from both genders. That was Mu Lin Shue and her teacher. Even with the help of her teacher and the teacher in golden red clothes, it had taken her half a year to modify her snake fire. Lin Shui, you should have a rest. You've made great efforts this past half year, said her teacher, smiling. I'm all right, and I should be thanking you for the efforts you've taken to help me, said Lin Shui in a gentle way. Since I'm your teacher, it's only natural. You've already modified the snake fire. Now becoming stronger will be even easier for you. After you break through to the Huangqi layer, you'll be able to absorb the rest of the fire and modify it yourself. I'm sure you'll become stronger than me in the future, said the teacher. Lin Shui smiled. She hoped that she'd become very strong, of course. Teacher, you must be tired. You should have a rest. Don't worry about me. I'm just going to have a walk, said Lin Shui, smiling at her teacher. Then he said, what you mean to say is that you want to go and see your lover? Lin Shui looked shy and said, Teacher, Lin Feng is just my friend. He only came to help me because of my father. So what? You're very close to each other, and usually people are friends before they start a relationship, said the teacher. Lin Shui's heart started racing after she thought about it. Lin Shui, the continent of the 9 clouds is vast. Goldfire City is only a small part of the continent. Lin Feng is extremely talented, so he'll certainly amaze the continent of the 9 clouds someday. You and Lin Feng are close, and you like him. You should take the initiative while you still have it. If you miss your chance now, you'll regret it someday, her teacher explained. Lin Shui remained silent for a moment, then saying, Teacher, I'm going. She smiled at her teacher one last time, and then left. Lin Feng. Lin Shui found Lin Feng rather quickly. She had arranged her hair while walking over, and was now smiling sweetly at him. Lin Shui, you've become even stronger, said Lin Feng. I still don't know how strong you are though. Back then, your force was multiplied by 1,000, and your abstruse energies were also at their highest levels. One more step, and you'll break through to the Huangqi layer. Lin Shui was praising him. Maybe, said Lin Feng, smiling. He didn't admit it, but indeed, one more step and he'd break through to the Huangqi layer. However, that was easier said than done. He needed an opportunity for that, and he didn't know when it would come. Where are we going? Lin Shui asked as Lin Feng seemed to be taking them somewhere. I want to go and see the professor in the golden purple clothes, and asked him for a map. I'm not familiar with the continent of the 9 clouds. She was surprised to hear him say that. It meant that he was planning on leaving. The continent of the 9 clouds is too large. It might even be endless. The professor can't have a map of the entire continent. We're in the Dark Night region, but I'm not even sure you could find a map of the entire region, said Lin Shui. Lin Shui, where does that name come from? Asked Lin Feng. Lin Shui was surprised. Lin Feng didn't know something so ordinary. I'm not sure about the details, but the continent of the 9 clouds is divided into 9 major plates, the 9 clouds. The godly clouds, the dark clouds, the green jade clouds, the red clouds, the bright clouds, the jade clouds, the blue pale clouds, the purple clouds, and the supreme clouds. Of these, Goldfire City is in the dark clouds. Lin Shui explained. What about the holy city? Does it exist? Asked Lin Feng. In the small world, people had said that the great world was the holy city. The holy city exists indeed. It's an important celestial city, one of 18 in the Dark Night region. Although I've heard about it, I've never been there because it's very, very far away, replied Lin Shui. It really exists, whispered Lin Feng. And it was a famous celestial city at that. Chapter 1651. Vast celestial ancient city, holy city. Lin Feng frowned as he thought of something. The diviner had told him to come to Holy City to find him. But did he mean the real Holy City as in the celestial city, or did he mean the great world as a whole? If the diviner had meant the entire great world, then it would be extremely difficult to find him, unless Fortune Shrine was very famous, and everybody knew about it in the continent of the 9 clouds. Lin Shui, do you know about Fortune Shrine? Lin Feng asked. Fortune Shrine. Lin Shui shivered. Fortune Shrine was very mysterious, even more so than the Holy City. She didn't know much about it besides the name. According to legends, it was one of the most powerful influential groups in the world. The Holy City is in the Dark Night region, and it's one of the main cities, so maybe you'll learn more about it there. I'm not strong enough, so I've never had the opportunity to learn more about it, said Mu Lin Shui. Lin Shui, have you ever heard of the vast celestial ancient city? Asked Lin Feng. Mu Lin Shui looked at Lin Feng in a strange way. He didn't know much about the continent of the 9 clouds, so she was wondering how he had lived before. Lin Feng, the vast celestial ancient city is one of the main cities, just like the holy city. It's one of the 18 ancient cities that kind of reign over the region we are in, said Mu Lin Shui. By the way, why do you ask me that? I see, thought Lin Feng. This reminded him a bit of Tiantai in the northern part of Bahuang. If it was the same, then that meant their region was probably divided into 18 parts, and each of them was controlled by a city. I saw that in the memories an old man had transmitted to me, said Lin Feng to Mu Lin Shui. He didn't explain more though. Actually, he had learnt about the vast celestial ancient city in the memories of the everlasting celestial emperor. The everlasting palace still wanted to capture Lin Feng, so there were things he couldn't talk about. He didn't know how far he was from Xixiang City, but if he wasn't far, he had to leave soon. The professor must have a map of the region at least, said Lin Feng. Maybe, since you want one, we can go and see him. I'll come with you too, said Mu Lin Shui smiling. Lin Feng nodded, and they both crossed Goldfire Tower to get to the professor's place. The professor, 6 months before, had told Lin Feng to come if he needed anything. After a short time, Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui arrived in front of a golden-purple tower, which reminded them of the professor's clothes. Lin Feng, Mu Lin Shui. Someone came out and appeared in the courtyard. He smiled. Don't be shy, come here. Thank you very much, master, said Lin Feng bowing. Not bad, you've both progressed a lot. Lin Feng will become an emperor soon, said the professor. I wonder when I'll be able to break through to the Huangqi layer, said Lin Feng smiling. Many people's cultivation stopped at different points. Even though Lin Feng was talented, breaking through to the Huangqi layer wasn't going to be easy. When you are ready, things happen naturally. Maybe someday you'll understand something suddenly, and then level up, said the professor smiling. By the way, did you want something from me? Master, do you have a map of the region controlled by the vast celestial ancient city? Said Lin Feng straightforwardly. Oh. The professor's eyes twinkled. He smiled and said, Lin Feng, do you want to go to the vast celestial ancient city? I'm thinking of going, said Lin Feng. The vast celestial ancient city is one of the 18 main cities in our region. There are many strong cultivators there, powerful sects and clans, many geniuses. It's a heaven for cultivators is what I'm getting at. Of course, it can also be hell for some people, depending on their luck. Lin Feng, I will send some strong cultivators there in a few months. If you want, you can go with them, said the professor. A young person from Goldfire Tower is in the vast celestial ancient city, and in a few months, those people will go and visit him. They'll also bring some young people to broaden their horizons, said the professor. Having said this, if you still want to go alone, you can. I have maps in my memories, and I can transmit a map of the region to you, said the professor smiling. He didn't want Lin Feng to misunderstand him. Thank you very much, master, said Lin Feng bowing. Then, the professor transmitted the memories to Lin Feng. It was kind of blurry though several places were not distinct. It was probably difficult to make a precise map of such a huge place. Master, I'm off, I'll see you later, said Lin Feng before he turned around left with Mu Lin Shui. Lin Feng, what do you want to do now? Mu Lin Shui asked him. Since the end of the tournament, we've been staying in Goldfire Tower the whole time. We should go and see Uncle Muyi, said Lin Feng cheerfully. Mu Lin Shui didn't mind and smiled back. I wonder how my dad is doing. Let's go to the Mu clan. The Mu clan was prosperous those days. Since the end of the tournament, Muyi had gone back, and Mu Lin Shui's uncle had been expelled. The Mu clan was still under a lot of pressure from the Yan clan though. Of course, the Yan clan didn't dare openly attack the Mu clan either. Mu Lin Shui and Lin Feng had become important people to Goldfire Tower. So who know what their response would be if they were openly hostile. Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui went back to the Mu clan, many people instantly noticing them. Older people smiled at Lin Feng politely. Having heard or seen about him kill an emperor, They could only admire him. When Mu Yi saw Lin Feng and Mu Lin Shui, he instantly became happy. They had food and drinks before Lin Feng wanted to leave. "Where are you going, Lin Feng?" Mu Lin Shui asked. She seemed sad, as if she didn't want Lin Feng to leave. "Lin Shui, you should stay here in the Mu clan. I want to go to Sword Mountain," Lin Feng said. Sword Mountain wasn't far from Goldfire Tower. Lin Feng wanted to go and see Wuxia, seeing how he hadn't traveled for a year. He didn't like staying in the same place for too long. After he came back, then he'd go to the vast celestial ancient city with the people from Goldfire Tower. "I want to come with you," said Mu Lin Shui. She looked strange, as if she was scared that Lin Feng would never come back. Lin Feng smiled wryly and said, "Don't worry, I'll come back to Goldfire Tower. This trip won't take that long." Mu Lin Shui lowered her head. She looked sad and disappointed. "Haha, Lin Shui, are you really so scared that Lin Feng won't come back?" said Mu Yi, laughing. Mu Lin Shui blushed and said, "Dad. All right, everybody knows how you're feeling. Lin Feng, go, I'll take care of my daughter," said Mu Yi. Lin Feng smiled wryly. He knew that Mu Yi wanted him to be with his daughter. "Uncle Mu Yi, Lin Shui, I'm off," said Lin Feng. And then he moved like the wind and left. Mu Yi then stopped smiling and whispered, "That little boy is difficult to understand. It won't be easy for you to start a relationship with him, Lin Shui." Mu Lin Shui raised her head and watched as Lin Feng left. She knew that Lin Feng was just trying to keep some distance between them. Chapter 1652. Sword Precipice. Sword Mountain was situated in a mountain range not far from Goldfire Tower. It had existed for many, many years, and with this time, they've accumulated enough cultivators and resources to destroy entire territories. They had many ancient scriptures for sword cultivators to study, as well as ancient sword techniques and skills. At the top of one of these mountains, which looked to have been cut by a sword, there were many sword cultivators practicing cultivation. There were men and women, young and old. Many of them were disciples, but there were also foreigners who had come to study sword cultivation. That mountain had been cut by a sword, and it seemed like the energy from that sword would never leave the mountain. Even thought the sword energy didn't contain any immortal strength. The pure sword energy didn't disperse. In the past, 2 ancestors destroyed 19 of these mountains, leaving them as a testament to their strength. "I can only imagine what kind of battle that was," said a young man. In the air, Lin Feng was flying slowly and landed on a mountain. The sword energies from that mountain instantly surrounded him. But the most intriguing part was that the energy was very familiar. Wu Tian's energy. Emperor Wu Tianjian must have fought someone here, thought Lin Feng. The other sword energy present wasn't any weaker than Emperor Wu Tianjian's sword energy. Actually, it was the opposite. It was even stronger than Emperor Wu Tianjian's sword energy. Maybe this is where Emperor Wu Tianjian was injured, thought Lin Feng. He didn't know how that battle ended from just the energies here, so maybe he could ask around. Lin Feng looked around, seeing many people seated cross-legged, studying the sword energies. Some of them were in the sky, while some were on the broken mountains. Lin Feng jumped forwards, and after looking around, arriving in front of a young person who was seated before sheer precipices and overhanging rocks. Lin Feng asked, "Your Excellency, do you know who the 2 fighters were and how the battle ended?" The young man suddenly opened his eyes after Lin Feng spoke. "Piss off!" He spat out sword energies at Lin Feng, tearing his clothes apart. Slash slash. Suddenly, Lin Feng released his own sword energies, which formed something looking like a river of sword lights. What a powerful sword cultivator, thought the young man. Lin Feng jumped forwards, pushing back that guy's sword energies. His facial expression changed drastically after seeing Lin Feng's energies. He was a powerful sword cultivator who could easily kill cultivators of the 9th Zunqi layer, and surprisingly, he was the one being oppressed. Lin Feng took another step forward. Although it was only a small one, it felt like a heavy hammer had fallen on his opponent. He groaned coldly, and his face turned pale. "Your Excellency, please stop," shouted that cultivator. However, Lin Feng took another step forward, this time releasing earth energy. His interlocutor couldn't even move his legs anymore. He was shaking and was deathly pale. Finally, the young man couldn't release any more energies, and was suddenly propelled away, crashing onto a mountain. Lin Feng glanced at the young man in a sharp way. "Answer me," said Lin Feng. The young man's face looked deathly pale, as he was worried for his life. But then a strong wind started blowing, and moved towards Lin Feng. 3 sword cultivators appeared and surrounded Lin Feng. They said nothing, they just stood there. Lin Feng condensed a sword. A heavy sword which was larger than most ordinary swords. At the same time, the 3 cultivators unsheathed their swords from their backs, each of them carrying a silvery glint. All the disciples from Sword Mountain receive ordinary silver swords, but once they reach the rank of intern, they receive imperial cyan swords. These guys only unsheathed their silver swords because they were fighting 3 against 1. "Attack!" shouted one of them. They all attacked at the same time. Their sword lights turned into a web which surrounded Lin Feng like a cage. Lin Feng moved like the wind while condensing more heavy sword energies. Quickly, he destroyed the sword web, and moved towards one of them at full speed. What a powerful sword attack! He's an excellent sword fighter, thought Lin Feng's enemies. Lin Feng landed in front of one of them, and 9 sword lights surrounded him. Those swords' lights were intertwining, and turning into a sword-like curtain. The 2 others landed behind Lin Feng, with more silver sword lights threatening him. Sword Mountain's disciples are very strong, but that guy is too strong. An ordinary cultivator would have died instantly, thought the crowd. The 4 fighters were extremely fast. However, death was something that could happen quickly. Whoosh! Lin Feng jumped forwards. The energies around him were as heavy as mountains. Break! After weighing them down, Lin Feng attacked them with both force and sword energies. 2 silver lights broke apart, and their casters were propelled backwards. Lin Feng continued running forwards. Then, Lin Feng rotated as he threw his sword from his right hand downward, the sword now looking like a shooting star as it assaulted someone else. The disciples from Sword Mountain were looking pale. No matter what they did, they couldn't defeat Lin Feng. Bang! That cultivator fell into the valley, bleeding profusely. The other 2 looked furious as they released their spirits, which were both gigantic swords. "Attack!" The 2 cultivators shouted furiously. Their sword spirits moved at the same time, one containing wind abstruse energies, while the other one contained golden energy. Their sword attacks are terrifying, thought Lin Feng when he saw the one which was using the wind. At the same time, he raised his hands and his earth sword flew ahead of him, forming a curtain of energies in front of him. Lin Feng condensed more sword energies and pushed forwards, creating a hole in the gigantic wind sword. Then the 2 gigantic swords were both pushed backwards, their cultivators both coughing up blood while being propelled backwards. At the same time, their sword energies progressively dispersed. That sword cultivator is too strong. Even his attacks were similar to the leaders, thought the crowd. At least, Sword Mountain's disciples couldn't defeat him. At that moment, a terrifyingly sharp sword chi invaded the mountains. The few Sword Mountain's disciples who were fighting grabbed the cyan swords on their backs, unsheathing their imperial swords. "If you decide to fully unsheath those swords, I won't be merciful, and I'll kill you quickly," said Lin Feng, glancing at them. The opponents looked petrified. Lin Feng had been merciful so far. Chapter 1653. Wuxia the Emperor. "Who are you, Your Excellency?" asked one of the disciples. Finally, they decided not to unsheath their swords. Lin Feng had been merciful so far in not killing them after all. "Lin Feng, I am going to have a walk in Sword Mountain," said Lin Feng. "Did you come for the Great Sword Test?" someone asked. Great Sword Test? Lin Feng didn't know what it was. He shook his head and said, "No, I want to know to who those 2 threads of sword energies belong to." "You really don't know?" asked the disciple. "Everybody who came to study those energies knew who they belonged." "Would I ask if I knew?" said Lin Feng in a cold way, starting to get agitated from asking the same question repeatedly. A long time ago, an unknown sword cultivator fought against the leader of Sword Mountain, Emperor Tai Jian, the first disciple of the old leader, said the disciple. "That wasn't a secret," Everybody knew about that battle, which had taken place thousands of years before. Emperor Tai Jian's sword weighed several tons, but even then, it was a close match between him and the unknown sword cultivator. Finally, he managed to injure the unknown sword cultivator, but Emperor Tai Jian had also been injured. It took him hundreds of years to recover, and after that, he had continued practicing cultivation until he became a great emperor. Emperor Tai Jian, the leader of Sword Mountain, thought Lin Feng. Emperor Wu Tianjian had fought against the leader of Sword Mountain. How did the battle end? Asked Lin Feng. Our leader won. Even though his opponent was very strong, he was too injured. After the battle, our leader became a great emperor and became the patriarch of Sword Mountain, said the disciple. Of course, he didn't mention how badly their leader had been injured back then. Why did they fight? Asked Lin Feng. Emperor Tai Jian couldn't have fought against Emperor Wu Tianjian for no reason. The disciple remained silent, and after a few seconds he said coldly, "You defeated me, and I replied to many of questions already, but now you're going too far." There were many legends about that battle, but some small things could influence their patriarch's reputation. Therefore, they couldn't say everything. Besides, it was difficult to know everything precisely. The battle had happened thousands of years before after all. Only the protagonists could tell what had happened. "What's wrong?" said someone in the distance. A few people from Sword Mountain had arrived. Lin Feng turned around, and the person who arrived said in a cold way, "You?" "Lu Yao." That was the young man Lin Feng had met in Xixiang City. Back then, Lu Yao was only interested in Lin Shui, but Lin Shui liked Wuxia. "Brother Lu Yao," said the few disciples. Lu Yao nodded and said in a cold way, "You dare attack my disciples in our territory?" Lin Feng smiled when he heard Lu Yao trying to accuse him of something. "Lu Yao, show me the way. I need to go to the main mountain of Sword Mountain." "Huh?" Lu Yao was surprised. Lin Feng was giving him orders? "Don't you know that you're only at the foot of Sword Mountain?" asked Lu Yao mockingly. "How noisy." Lin Feng shook his hands, and a sword talisman appeared. Then he threw it in the air and said, "Bring me to the top of Sword Mountain." Lu Yao caught the talisman and frowned. Why did Lin Feng have the talisman of Sword Mountain? "Who gave you that talisman?" asked Lu Yao. Terrifying sword lights appeared in the sky. This time Lin Feng was using his desolate Xana sword attack. Lu Yao's facial expression changed drastically. He didn't hesitate and moved backwards. Even then, his sleeve was torn apart, and a wound appeared on his wrist. "I'll say it just one last time. Give me back my talisman and bring me to the top of Sword Mountain," said Lin Feng coldly. Lu Yao came back to his senses. Only the elders of the sect had these talismans, so even if Lin Feng killed him, nobody would care. How come Lin Feng had the talisman from their sect though? Lu Yao gave the talisman back to Lin Feng and started walking. Lin Feng looked at him coldly and said, "You don't know how to differentiate good from bad. Now hurry up." Lu Yao was furious, but he had no choice but to lead the way. He began to pick up the pace. They soon approached a gigantic mountain, suspended in the air, Sword Mountain. Many people appeared along the way, and they all had a very sharp chi. "Lu Yao, have you become a mountain guide?" Lin Feng asked mockingly. Lu Yao was annoyed and replied in a cold way, "No, I haven't seen you in a while, but you still haven't progressed. I thought you had become a tour guide because of that," said Lin Feng as he laughed boisterously. "How's Wuxia doing? Has he come out yet?" asked Lin Feng. "He came out," replied Lu Yao. Although he had to respond because of the talisman, he kept the conversation to a minimum. "You mean he's broken through to the Huang Qi layer already?" asked Lin Feng happily. Finally, a disciple of Tiantai had become an emperor. "Indeed," replied Lu Yao. Lin Feng was extremely happy and was smiling. Lu Yao looked upset. Indeed, Wuxia had broken through to the Huang Qi layer, while he wasn't having a great time. After all, Lu Yao and Wuxia belonged to the same generation. However, he quickly forgot about this after he saw how fast Lin Feng was. He struggled to catch up with him. At the top of the mountain, Wuxia was welcoming guests. The Great Sword test was going to start 3 days later. So many people came to visit, including public figures. Ruoxia, said Lin Feng. Ruoxia glanced around and saw Lin Feng. Then he smiled. Lin Feng, you're here. Indeed, your chi is different as expected, said Lin Feng as he looked at Ruoxia. Don't make fun of me. When I came out, the elders mentioned you, saying that you had won the weapon tournament. If our teachers had seen you, they'd be so happy, said Ruoxia smiling. Indeed, I wonder how they are, said Lin Feng nostalgically. I also wonder how our fellow disciples are these days. Maybe they have all broken through to the Huang Qi layer. If not, then it's only a matter of time. Chapter 1654. Sword Mountain's events. When we first came to the Great World, 2 of our disciples were already cultivators at the very top of the Zunqi layer. And with their abilities, I wouldn't be surprised if they had already broken through to the Huang Qi layer. Ruoxia said. I think so too. And maybe Tian Qi has broken through to the Huang Qi layer as well, said Lin Feng cheerfully. After all, they had been in the Great World for 7 years already. It was a long time, and anything could happen there. Lin Feng had spent so much time studying deployment spells. And even then, he was only 1 step away from breaking through to the Huang Qi layer as well. His cultivation was more complex than his fellow disciples. And on top of that, his cultivation level had always been lower. Lin Feng, the continent of the 9 clouds is vast, so it will be very difficult to find everyone else. Therefore, we should continue practicing cultivation with the goal of one day making Tiantai a reality in this large world. Then our friends and teachers will find us easily, said Ruoxia. Definitely, said Lin Feng while nodding. Ruoxia, is that your friend? Asked a middle-aged man who was looking at Lin Feng. Indeed, he's one of my fellow disciples from the small world, said Ruoxia nodding. Lin Feng, that's Master Yun Yao. He often teaches me things here. Hello Master Yun Yao, I'm Lin Feng, said Lin Feng, nodding and smiling. Yun Yao looked at Lin Feng and whispered, Lin Feng. Are you Lin Feng from Goldfire City? Said Yun Yao suddenly. I spent some time there, said Lin Feng nodding. Even strong cultivators from Sword Mountain now recognized him. The rumors are true. You're only a Zoom cultivator, yet you can kill emperors and you're so young. On top of that, you're also friends with Ruoxia. How interesting, said Yun Yao enthusiastically. He had heard a lot about Lin Feng, so he was immediately curious. Besides, Ruoxia was already very talented, so Yun Yao was curious to see how strong Lin Feng was. Ruoxia was very strong, even compared to most of the disciples of Sword Mountain. And now his disciple, a Zoom cultivator, could kill emperors. Make yourself at home, Little Feng, said Yun Yao. He called Lin Feng Little Feng as if they were close. Lin Feng was delighted. Please come and have a seat. Let's have some food and drinks, you're a guest of honor after all, said Ruoxia. Lin Feng followed, and soon they arrived in a big hall where many people had gathered. Some people were seated, others were chatting or relaxing. But through all this, Lin Feng sensed that someone was looking at him in a cold way. The Yin clan. Lin Feng glanced around and noticed some people from the tournament. They were probably high officials. The Great Sword Test was going to start soon, and those people from the Yin clan were probably guests of honors. Long time no see. I trust you have been doing well since we last met, said a few people from the Yin clan to Lin Feng. They were very polite, which was surprising given the circumstances. I'm good for I'm still alive, said Lin Feng mockingly. He knew those people wanted to kill him. He had killed Yin Feng, which was a humiliation for them. Cosmic energies condensed. Suddenly, Lin Feng sensed that the temperature was rising to an unpleasant degree. The people around them sensed the heat and looked at Lin Feng, noticing how unhappy he looked. Then suddenly the ground between the members of the Yin clan broke apart. The members of the Yin clan jumped away, and a deep pit formed where they were standing just before. The crowd was surprised to see that some people were fighting there, especially seeing how Sword Mountain was hosting. The elders of Sword Mountain glanced at the members of the Yin clan, which made the Yin clan look upset after they noticed. They turned to Lin Feng and said, How audacious, you dare cause trouble here? You even destroyed the ground. You were standing there and I wasn't, why try to accuse me? said Lin Feng expressionlessly. Why would we break the ground under our own feet? Why would I break the ground under your feet? Asked Lin Feng. You. The members of the Yin clan couldn't admit that they had attacked Lin Feng first. How can I know you don't harbor evil intentions? Asked one of the cultivators from the Yin clan. Since you won't speak the truth, I will. The reason why I destroyed the ground was because someone attacked me with fire cosmic energies, and I had to protect myself, said Lin Feng. Of course I did damage the ground. This was my mistake, so I can leave if Sword Mountain doesn't want me here. Is that true? Asked an elder to Yao Yin who was standing not too far from Lin Feng. Master, Lin Feng is saying the truth. The Yin clan attacked first, said Yin Yao nodding. Not only this, but the members of the Yin clan are a lot stronger than Lin Feng. So if Lin Feng hadn't reacted, he would have died. Please forgive him. How many clans are there in Goldfire City who are as strong as the Yin clan? Asked the elder to Yun Yao. 2 in the northern part of Goldfire City, and many more in the other parts of the city. 12 if you consider the whole city, said Yin Yao calmly. When you have time, try to find a clan with whom we can work with in the future, said the elder indifferently. Suddenly, the members of the Yin clan turned upset, saying, Please forgive us, master. The Yin clan disappointed us already, and we don't want to see such things happen again, said the elder from Sword Mountain. Lin Feng, said the elder cheerfully. I've heard that you're Wuxia's fellow disciple. Sword Mountain is extremely happy to have you here. You can stay as long as you wish. Many people looked at Lin Feng when they heard the elder. They were wondering who that young man was. He was so young, but Sword Mountain gave him face. The elder had even humiliated the Yin clan because of him. It wasn't as simple as it looked though. Sword Mountain wanted to find another partner, because the Yin clan had become too weak. Lin Feng was Wuxia's friend, and he was starting to become famous, so it was a good idea to get closer to him. Zoom cultivator, who could kill emperors, were extremely rare after all. Lin Feng, come and meet some of the elders, said Yin Yao. Very quickly, many people learnt who Lin Feng was. After that, everybody ignored the Yin clan. Lin Feng didn't spend too much time in the hall. He wanted to walk around with Wuxia and visit the region. There were many historical remains filled with sword energies that Lin Feng wanted to search. 3 days later, the Great Sword Test was starting in a valley. Many groups of influence were present, including disciples from Sword Mountain. The Great Sword Test was an event where disciples from Sword Mountain exchanged their views on cultivation. Wuxia had just broken through to the Huangqi layer, so he couldn't participate. Instead, he just sat with Lin Feng. There are all sorts of disciples in Sword Mountain who practice different sorts of techniques and skills, including many who I've never seen before, thought Lin Feng. He had been watching for 2 hours already, and even though many of these disciples couldn't compete with him, he could still learn a lot by watching their sword techniques. Chapter 1655. Cutting off an arm. Wuxia, you've studied sword ancient scriptures in Sword Mountain, right? Lin Feng asked as they were observing the battles in the valley. Indeed, I studied many ancient scriptures in the valley, very powerful ones too. I studied some which are good for my speed cosmic energies, but I didn't manage to make my decay energy turn into cosmic energy though. Even if I continued studying decay energy, I don't think I'll be able to find any decay ancient scriptures. Wuxia explained while nodding. He had broken through to the Huangqi layer, relying on speed cosmic energies. Decay strength is rare and enigmatic. It's normal that you didn't manage to make it become cosmic energy yet. But I'm sure you will though. Now that you're an emperor, you will only become stronger, said Lin Feng. You understand more kinds of energies than me. It will be very difficult for you to make them all turn into cosmic energies. You'll also need some ancient scriptures to help you improve your cosmic energies. Lin Feng, you must make the right choices in the future, said Wuxia. With the proper skills, leveling up was easier. Lin Feng had studied demon ancient scriptures. Therefore, he'd need to rely on demon strength to break through to the Huangqi layer. I understand, said Lin Feng nodding. He needed to think about it properly, but the 3 live scriptures were very powerful. Time passed, and a few more people had fought. Lin Feng had noted some magnificent sword techniques, as well as some outstanding sword cultivators. If I hadn't broken through to the Huangqi layer, I would have participated in the Great Sword Test. But even then, I wouldn't have ranked first or second, maybe the top 5 though, whispered Wuxia. It didn't mean he wasn't as talented. It was just that some of them had practiced sword techniques longer than him, and with better resources. The test ended, and the one who won wore a helmet with a feather crest. His main technique was the 9 Suns sword technique. The second one was amazing too. He practiced the same technique as the leader of Sword Mountain. He used a gigantic iron sword. Although he was very young, he still looked mature. Lu Yao ranked 5th, which wasn't bad. His sword technique was unique in that appeared almost invisible when he attacked. All the disciples were great. That was a beautiful show. Many people who don't belong to the sect are here. So if someone wants to give it a try, they can. Even emperors can give it a try. But you're only allowed to use sword techniques. And you must restrain your cultivation level, said the elder, standing up and smiling. Lin Feng had only observed, but he knew the participants were nervous. For them, that test was important, because it was a way to prove to the elders of Sword Mountain that they were capable. Can I challenge anyone? Asked someone at that moment, standing up. Indeed, you can challenge anyone, said the elder, smiling. Many people jumped into the valley and started fighting disciples from Sword Mountain. Some of them won, some others lost. Some very strong young people had come from far away to see the competition, because they were fascinated by swords. However, nobody managed to defeat the champions. At that moment, Lu Yao had just defeated a strong cultivator, and was smiling at Lin Feng. Lin Feng, you won against some of my disciples last time, and you're a strong sword cultivator. Why don't you come and show us how good you are at sword cultivation? Lu Yao didn't really know how strong Lin Feng was. He didn't even know that Lin Feng had killed an emperor in Goldfire City either. Those who knew about that were primarily the emperors in Sword Mountain. Even without this knowledge, Lu Yao still didn't underestimate Lin Feng. He had met Lin Feng a few times, and he really wanted to fight him. Fighting against him during the Great Sword Test was a safe way to see how strong Lin Feng really was, because Lin Feng couldn't kill him. Lin Feng knew what Lu Yao was thinking, so he smiled. Many people were looking at Lin Feng, including the elder, who smiled and said, Lin Feng, you also practice sword cultivation? I just taught myself a few things, I'm only a beginner, replied Lin Feng, smiling. Go and have a try then, maybe I can learn something from you, said the elder jokingly. Lu Yao was astonished. The great elder was making jokes with Lin Feng. Lu Yao didn't know what to think, but Lin Feng stood up and said, All right, let's have a try then. Then he landed in the valley in front of Lu Yao. Lu Yao unsheathed a silver sword and asked Lin Feng, Where's your sword? Lin Feng took out an ordinary sword, which actually looked fake as it waved about. Lin Feng bent his sword and said, smiling, I know when to unsheath a sword. You. Lu Yao looked furious. Lin Feng was obviously making fun of him. He immediately released sword chi towards Lin Feng. Then he disappeared with his sword, reappearing closer to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was surprised to see such a nice technique. Lin Feng moved like the wind and dodged the incoming attack. Slash. Lu Yao slashed forward, destroying the wind energies. Lin Feng moved like a leaf in the wind. He was both agile and flexible. He appeared in the sky and dodged Lu Yao's attacks again. Lu Yao was furious. He continued moving like an illusion as he chased Lin Feng. Die! Terrifying energies condensed as his silver sword moved towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng suddenly stopped. He fixedly stared at the wind sword while remaining motionless. He looked particularly calm as he firmly held his soft sword. Lin Feng was using this quickly fleeting moment to study the attack. Finally, when the attack got too close, an explosion sounded as an explosive chi appeared, assaulting the illusional sword attack. Lu Yao couldn't condense his energies at that point, so Lin Feng took the opportunity to attack 3 times. The first was an explosive wind sword. The second one was a protective slash, and the third one was difficult to describe as it moved towards Lu Yao. Lin Feng's attacks were extremely fast. A horrible shriek sounded, and Lu Yao moved backwards. Blood splashed, and his sword energies dispersed. The crowd looked at Lu Yao's arm. It had been cut off. "Your sword techniques are not bad," said Lin Feng, smiling. "Lin Feng, what sword technique is that?" the elder asked. He didn't recognize it, but he could tell that it went from looking ordinary at the beginning and becoming explosive at the end. "I just condensed some abstruse energies, that's all," replied Lin Feng. The elder was surprised and smiled. "I see, when a cultivator is strong, his techniques are powerful." Chapter 1656. Emperor Wu Tianjian's sword intent. "I really don't deserve so much praise, master," said Lin Feng, smiling and nodding. Then he looked at the one who had ranked second and asked, "Your Excellency, would you like to try?" The young man glanced at Lin Feng and moved towards him. "I do." Lin Feng had just used one technique to defeat Lu Yao, even making it look easy. However, he had released so much energy at once, which he knew wasn't that easy to do. So the second place guy wanted to see how strong Lin Feng really was. Lu Yao was still bleeding, and everybody was looking at him in a disdainful way. He had ranked 5th, and he still had lost an arm. The young man with the iron sword suddenly released force which rose to the skies. His energies quickly became oppressive. Slash! The battle stage was immediately cut into as the young man with the iron sword ran towards Lin Feng, marks appearing around his iron sword. Then he suddenly jumped in the air, falling down like a mountain onto Lin Feng. He also understands earth abstruse energy. "I see," thought Lin Feng. He raised his hands while condensing earth energies into a sword. He jumped ahead, and a gigantic sword appeared at the same time. It collided with the iron sword, leaving Lin Feng's tingling with numbness. The young man raised his iron sword again, and attacked a few more times, each time leaving Lin Feng with the feeling that a mountain was falling on him. "How strong," thought the crowd. The Sword King scriptures are some of the most powerful scriptures in Sword Mountain, and the leader personally transmits them to his disciples. "The leader wouldn't be disappointed to his disciple now," said the elder. "Those attacks look like Yuan phase attacks but are more powerful. Also, it's difficult to dodge them due to their oppressiveness," thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng raised his head, and his sword intent seemingly changed, looking harder and sharper. He turned into a light as he moved with the wind. This time he used his wind and thunder attack, Nirvana Suanya destruction, and his desolate Ksana. The iron sword was pushed back, and a gigantic hole appeared in his energies. However, from that hole, a new sword appeared which had wind and iron energies fused together. With that sword, a dazzling light appeared in front of Lin Feng. What a terrifying strength, earth abstruse energy, but it's practically cosmic energy. There's also some kind of sword king chi. How scary, thought Lin Feng as he condensed more sword intent himself. He didn't want to face the attack head-on, if only to see if he could. A gigantic black sword appeared, looking like a demonic mountain as it fell. As their attacks collided, it was difficult for the audience to imagine that battle was only between Zun cultivators. The young man with the iron sword was propelled higher into in the air as Lin Feng was propelled downwards, crashing into the ground. They both felt paralyzed from the exchange. The man who was fighting Lin Feng looked at him and said, "Your sword techniques are great, because you know so many types of energies. I cannot defeat you, but I can still tell that there are some small problems with your sword techniques, being that they're not pure enough. No sword technique is perfect, and I acknowledge that my techniques do have many flaws. Thank you for your advice. Even though you lost, you can be proud," said Lin Feng. Lin Feng really didn't know how to create the strongest attacks, even though he knew so many things. "I know what you mean. You're not like most people. I am not as talented as you, so I must study very hard. All of this considered, I was happy to fight against you," said the young man. Then he walked away. "I am pleased as well, thank you," said Lin Feng, smiling. Then, someone else landed in front of Lin Feng, who was wearing a helmet adorned with feathers. "It looks like the champion also wants to fight," thought the crowd. The elder smiled indifferently. No matter how strong Lin Feng was, sword cultivators were always determined. "I hope we can exchange our views on cultivation," said the young man with the helmet. He He was holding a fiery sword which wasn't an imperial weapon. They didn't use imperial weapons during their battles, because it would have been meaningless. Even though imperial weapons could help a cultivator become stronger, this was a test of personal skill. Initially, Lin Feng wanted to fight against the young man with the iron sword, because he wanted to see him use Emperor Tai Jian's technique up close. But why not fight against the champion of the contest as well? "Unsheath your sword," said Lin Feng in a calm way. The young man nodded, then his sword energies dashed to the skies. With a flash, 9 suns appeared in the sky, illuminating the area. Lin Feng's reluctantly squinted his eyes under that penetrating light. A terrifying fire suddenly appeared in front of Lin Feng, giving him the impression that he was in danger. He subconsciously shivered before moving like the wind. 9 suns assassination. The young man moved as well, condensing the 9 suns into a gigantic fire dragon. Break! Lin Feng closed his eyes. Then a death sword appeared in his hand. The sword and the dragon clashed. However, the young man landed in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng's fingers turned into sharp swords while the 9 suns appeared again, just as dazzling as before. 9 suns laceration, said the young man. This time the 9 suns turned into a sharp fiery sword. Desolate explosion, shouted Lin Feng furiously. He condensed destructive energies this time. 9 suns shield, said the young man. He disappeared and reappeared in front of Lin Feng, his sword still moving towards Lin Feng at full speed. Attack! Lin Feng stopped using his real sword and funneled his energies into his hands, which turned into swords, and then his entire body followed suit. Ha! The elder from Sword Mountain sensed Wu Tian's qi in Lin Feng's energies. Chapter 1657. Wu Tianjian indeed, his sword technique really looks like his, thought the elder. He wasn't the only one to recognize this. Many other old cultivators from Sword Mountain were surprised by Lin Feng's sword intent. However, it had only lasted for a few seconds. With some effort, Lin Feng continued to hold off his opponent. Eventually, the battle dragged on until the young man suddenly moved back. He knew he had lost. You're like a sword, at least you think like one. I can't defeat you, said the young man, smiling wryly. He had tried to use powerful and explosive attacks to earn himself an early victory, but when that didn't work out, he was quickly depleted. My sword attacks aren't weak though, said the young man. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, your sword techniques are perfect, I think. No matter what, I think that Zoom cultivators can't defeat you, only emperors can threaten you, said the young man calmly. Lin Feng, said the elder at that moment, making Lin Feng turn around. Your sword techniques are incredible, so you must have had a teacher who taught you sword cultivation, right? Asked the old man. Someday, a strong sword cultivator told me I had to understand swords myself, so I spent a few years studying them myself, explained Lin Feng, not speaking the entire truth. A moment before, he had been careless and released some of Emperor Wu Tianjian's sword intent. Seeing how he still didn't know why Emperor Wu Tianjian fought Sword Mountain's strongest cultivator all those years ago, he had to be careful with what he said. Oh, wonderful, if that's possible, we'd like to meet him, said the old man smiling. I met him in a small world by accident, said Lin Feng. There were many small worlds in the continent of the 9 clouds, so the old man couldn't know which small world Lin Feng was talking about. The elder nodded and looked at all the disciples. Lin Feng's sword techniques are incredible, so if you want to learn something from him, hurry up and challenge him now. Nobody replied. The first and second disciples of the contest had lost to him already, so they knew they couldn't defeat him. I'm off then, said Lin Feng, after he saw that nobody wanted to fight him. He flew back to Wuxia. A few other outsiders were there, but they didn't draw everyone's attention as Lin Feng had. After all, after Lin Feng's battles, could there be anything more interesting? After the contest, Lin Feng and Wuxia went back to Sword Mountain, resting above some sheer precipices and overhanging rocks. Wuxia smiled at Lin Feng. The leader of Sword Mountain, Emperor Tai Jian, practiced here a lot back in the day. If you focus, you can sense his sword energies. Lin Feng smiled at Wuxia, seemingly understanding each other. Lin Feng jumped in the air above the valley, sword energy rise with him. Although it was extremely old, it still hadn't dispersed. Apart from Emperor Tai Jian's sword intent, there's also a monarchic sword intent, thought Lin Feng, sensing the energies around him. Emperor Tai Jian's ancient scriptures were called the Sword King scriptures for a reason. After a short time, Lin Feng went back to the top of the precipice and smiled at Wuxia. Are there other types of sword intent left by other strong cultivators? This is Sword Mountain, so of course there are many things left by some ancestors, said Wuxia. He took Lin Feng to another place where mountains surrounded them, each with a different type of energy. Even while standing afar, one could feel the oppressive might from millions of swords. Many ancestors came here to practice sword cultivation and left their sword intents. Over time it became more and more chaotic, said Wuxia, who was laughing. Lin Feng understood what it meant. If a cultivator persevered and stayed there to practice sword cultivation, then it could have great consequences. Lin Feng dived straight into the chaotic sword intent, being immediately feeling assaulted by millions of swords. Heavy sword intent, sharp sword intent, death sword intent. Lin Feng's sword intent chaotically moved around as well. Lin Feng closed his eyes and calmly sensed the energies. Wuxia looked at Lin Feng and smiled as he thought about how Lin Feng looked like a sword. 10 days later, the two of them left. At the foot of Sword Mountain, Lin Feng turned around and smiled at Wuxia. There's no need to see me off. If I have time, I'll come back to Sword Mountain to see you. Wuxia shook his head and said, the continent of the 9 clouds is full of strong cultivators, so we don't know what will happen. I will also leave soon and practice outside, for I need to face dangers to become stronger. If I stay in Sword Mountain all the time, I'll just rot here, and I'll never become a great emperor. Lin Feng nodded, he completely understood. When will we see each other again? Asked Lin Feng. Unless we bump into each other, we'll meet again when Tiantai becomes famous, said Wuxia smiling. Lin Feng nodded and left, looking confident and at ease as he did so. Even if Tiantai rises in the great world, how can we protect it if we're not strong enough? Whispered Wuxia as Lin Feng left. Tiantai's disciples are neither cowards nor weaklings. We each have our own ways of doing things. Lin Feng suddenly started moving with incredible speed, a sonic boom sounding as he accelerated. Lin Feng's sword intent kept changing as he moved along. An earth sword, immortal sword, ice-cold death sword. 10 different types of sword intent were flowing in the air. At the same time, he was followed by a cloud of demonic qi, as his sword and demon energies were intertwining. Lin Feng's sword energies kept changing, as he was trying to find the best ways to combine them. Fire and demon fire sword, earth and demon energies, a hard and heavy sword. He tried everything. Gotcha! Finally Lin Feng stopped. A gigantic canyon formed below him, as terrifyingly sharp demon energies engulfed the area. Arg! Lin Feng shouted furiously as he turned into a demonic sword. Sword and demon energies can destroy the sky. The world can't defeat me, shouted Lin Feng as he raised his hands to the sky. This sword is called Wu Tian, said Lin Feng. A hurricane filled with demonic energies formed and rose to the sky. Chapter 1658. Investigating about Lin Feng back in Sword Mountain. The elder was standing calmly at the top of a mountain. He glanced at the top of another mountain and saw a blurry silhouette. What do you want? Said an indifferently voice. The great elder had been standing there for a few hours already. Master, earlier today at the contest, I saw Emperor Wu Tianjian's sword intent, said the great elder in a low voice. The blurry silhouette looked surprised for a second. Who? Asked the blurry silhouette. Lin Feng. He's the champion of the weapon contest from Goldfire Tower. He controls many types of abstruse energies. And he's a cultivator at the very top of the Zunqi layer, who can kill emperors. He even practices sword cultivation, having used Emperor Wu Tianjian's sword intent. He said a powerful sword cultivator had taught him some things before. The elder explained everything in detail. Send some people to Goldfire City. If you can't find anything about him there, Then continue investigating, said the blurry silhouette. The great elder bowed and said, I'll take care of it. Then he left. The leader of Sword Mountain was a great emperor. And even though the great elder was already a high-level emperor, the difference between high-level emperors and great emperors was immense. Lin Feng didn't know what Sword Mountain was wanting to learn about him. Lin Feng still didn't know why Emperor Wu Tianjian and Emperor Taijian had fought before. At that moment, Lin Feng was walking in a field with two incredibly beautiful women next to him, Meng Qing and Qiu Yuexan. They could only appear in Lin Feng's dream. This time, they were both cultivators at the very top of the Zunqi layer. Inside the Jade Emperor's palace, it would be difficult to break through to the Huangqi layer. So Lin Feng felt both guilty and sad for them. He couldn't let them travel on their own though, because he would be too worried. Lin Feng, said Qiu Yuexan frowning. What's wrong? Lin Feng asked. I feel like the other side of me is coming back to life. It's getting more and more intense. I'm afraid I won't be able to stand the pressure, said Qiu Yuexan in a low voice, scared. Her other personality? Lin Feng sighed. Lin Feng couldn't help Qiu Yuexan with this. She could only rely on herself to overcome that personality. You can do it, said Lin Feng, smiling in a gentle way while caressing her hands. Qiu Yuexan nodded and smiled back. There's a village over there. We should go have a rest, said Meng Qing, pointing at a village. Lin Feng smiled. He couldn't refuse as he wasn't in a rush. There were many small rivers and streams in the village. The landscapes were beautiful. The people in the village were rather weak. Any Tian or Zun level cultivators were considered very strong there. They sat down by a river and put their feet in the water, enjoying the peace and tranquility. Lin Feng, I like this place, said Meng Qing smiling. She glanced around, looking at the fields, noticing the many young people who were practicing cultivation. Most of them were Xian-level cultivators who were studying the human and earth fusion, so that they could break through to the Tianqi layer. Without medicine and talent, living in this world is difficult. We must suffer a lot to become stronger, which means fighting in wars and killing many people. Even if we break through to the Tianqi layer later than others, it doesn't matter because after that, we also have time to break through to the Zunqi layer, and then the Huangqi layer. People don't lack time, they lack experience and intent, said a strong cultivator to the young people. Lin Feng smiled. Those young people were about 13 and 14. At that age, Lin Feng didn't know that much about cultivation, and now he was one step away from breaking though to the Huangqi layer. I wonder how Xiao Chun and Yi Shui are doing. The baby must have grown up some, thought Lin Feng, looking at the sunny village. It made him remember the small village in the small world. Wu Shang must be 9 years old now, thought Lin Feng. He was younger than Xiao Chun, but Wu Shang was already 9. I want to have a child too, said Meng Qing smiling. Lin Feng grabbed her hands and smiled. You're not shy anymore. I want to have a child with you and then raise him, watching him grow up, said Meng Qing blushing and hugging Lin Feng. Lin Feng caressed her back. He was touched but he knew it was impossible until he became an emperor. Qiu Yuexan grabbed Lin Feng's arm and said in a gentle voice, Lin Feng, give us clothes and masks, and then we'll stay with you. Lin Feng caressed her head. She really wanted to travel with him. Yes, I agree, said Meng Qing. Lin Feng smiled wryly and said, all right, I can do that. The teacher then noticed Lin Feng. He wasn't a cultivator, and he had 2 incredibly beautiful women next to him. Actually, he couldn't see Lin Feng's cultivation, which meant a really strong cultivator had come to their village. Let's go, said Lin Feng, and then they disappeared. The teacher was surprised. Those people were just too fast. Lin Feng and the 2 girls traveled through mountains, lakes, small cities, and boundless flatlands. They had also fought against many people. Apart from the famous main cities, there were also a myriad of average cities and villages. A month later, they went back to Goldfire City. At that moment, back in Sword Mountain, on the Forbidden Peak, the Great Elder came to see the leader again. He had investigated Lin Feng, and each time he learnt something new about Lin Feng, he was surprised. So how did it go? Asked the leader. I checked Muyi from the Mu clan in Goldfire City. He's the one who brought Lin Feng to Goldfire City. We made people chat with him, talk about his past, and some other important things. We learnt some things about the Everlasting Palace, and some about the 9 great celestial castles. We also made some cultivators go to Xixiang City and the 9 great celestial castles to investigate further. Lin Feng is from a small world, and he knows more than 10 different types of abstruse energies. I even sent some people to his small world to see if there was anything about him there. The Great Elder had done all he could to find out more about Lin Feng. Mui didn't talk about Lin Feng that much, just about the places they'd been. Chapter 1659. Awakening back in Ba Huang. The One Clan had replaced the Qi clan. In the central part of Ba Huang, the One Clan was very famous, exceptionally strong even. They were the strongest group in Ba Huang. Apart from the One Clan, there was another group, a group of alchemists who had been rising for a few years now. Ba Huangjiu, you already knew that they lived in a small world. Many people were curious about the great world, especially talented and outstanding young people. They wanted to see what it looked like, but at the same time, they knew they couldn't go because they were still too weak. At that moment, in the central part of Ba Huang, there were some people investigating about the past of the province, including Lin Feng's sword cultivation. Lin Feng was very famous in that world, so everybody knew about him. Concerning the strong sword cultivator, Jianga had one who had threatened the messenger from the celestial palace of punishing thunders. Everybody thought that he was Emperor Wu Tianjian. Now, emperors don't fight after they left with the geniuses of the province. We're in a small world, so maybe that they don't want to come back. Someone reasoned. Back in Sword City, Jianga had become bigger and more important. Even the One Clan and the pavilion of the monarchic alchemists didn't dare offend Jianga. At that moment, a middle-aged man arrived outside of Jianga's territory. He had a long, ordinary-looking sword resting on his back, but his sword qi was terrifying. "Who are you?" asked 2 guards coldly. "I've heard that Jianga is a place for sword cultivators. I've been practicing sword cultivation for 40 years, so I want to see the cultivators from Jianga," said the middle-aged man. Suddenly, he released a terrifying sword qi which whistled ferociously. The 2 guards' faces turned slightly pale after he released his sword qi. "Thunder sword," said the middle-aged man who was wearing cotton clothes. He was releasing thunder sword energies. After a short time, people on a gigantic sword appeared in the horizon, Jianmu and the others. "Who are you, Your Excellency?" asked Jianmu frowning. That person's sword intent was terrifying. "You're so weak, too weak even. You call this a holy place for sword cultivators?" said the middle-aged man, his thunder sword qi moving back to him. The sword cultivators of Jianga suddenly released sword energies, but the middle-aged man rose up in the air, his thunderous qi assaulting everyone beneath him. Although blood spilt, no one died. "You call yourselves sword cultivators?" mocked the middle-aged man while releasing even more sword qi. That guy was a sword emperor, which in Ba Huang was more than surprising. Few people in that small world could face him. "I'll just have to destroy Jianga then. You are a disgrace for sword cultivators," said the middle-aged man, unsheathing his sword. Nobody could dodge that attack. It seemed they were doomed. "Piss off!" shouted someone at that moment. The middle-aged man looked at the gigantic sword and said, "There's a very strong sword cultivator here, but he doesn't want to come out." Suddenly, sword energy rose to the skies, surprising the middle-aged man. "Master, could you please teach me sword cultivation?" asked the middle-aged man. "If I appear personally, I'll have to kill you, so just piss off," said the voice. The middle-aged man looked horrified. He bowed before the gigantic sword and said, "I disturbed you, so I'll leave." Then the middle-aged man left. At that moment, outside of the sword grave, there was an old man leaning against a wall. Emperor Wu Tianjian's sword was floating in front of him. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the sword. Then he whispered, "Even though I am in the small world, some people are still looking for me." Who was that strong sword cultivator who had come to Ba Huang? He had come only to make Emperor Wu Tianjian appear. The reason was clear. Lin Feng had already been to Sword Mountain, Otherwise no sword emperor would have known to come to Jiang'a. Over in Shuiyu, in Empress Shi's small world where Duan Xinyi lived, Yu Menghe and Lu Fei were watching Duan Xinyi practice cultivation. Lu Fei, Xinyi is becoming stronger and stronger with each day. Yu Menghe said to Lu Fei using telepathy. Indeed, she has changed a lot. She's improving so fast, said Lu Fei, though he was frowning. Xinyi was going through something strange where she became a stranger, sometimes possessing her old personality. Maybe it's because little Feng hasn't come back in such a long time, suggested Yu Menghe, still using telepathy. I don't think so. I don't think she would ever act like that if she could help it, said Lu Fei, still frowning. 7 years had passed, and she was still the same, just a bit more mature. But Duan Xinyi wasn't as gentle as in the past. She was colder like an ice queen. After so many years, when will little Lin Feng come back? Whispered Yu Menghe. Luckily, she had Wuxiang. Otherwise she would have missed Lin Feng too much. Mother, breaking through to the Huangqi layer is extremely difficult. Lin Feng will come back after having broken through to the Huangqi layer, said Lu Fei, smiling in a gentle way. However, at that moment, Duan Xinyi suddenly opened her eyes. Her hair was messy, she looked cold and distant. As soon as she opened her eyes she left. Xinyi, shouted Yu Menghe. However, Duan Xinyi ignored her and disappeared into the horizon. Duan Xinyi had become stronger than Yu Menghe, so she couldn't catch up with her anymore. Back in the Great World in Goldfire City, Qiuyu Xian suddenly started shaking as she released volumes of mercilessness qi. Yu Xian, said Lin Feng, hugging her tightly. But even as he hugged her, Qiuyu Xian was still shaking, and her mercilessness qi didn't disperse. She kept pushing Lin Feng in a struggle, but after a short time, she came back to her senses and her mercilessness qi progressively disappeared. Yu Xian, what's wrong? Asked Meng Qing. She looked worried. Qiuyu Xian looked terrified as she looked at Lin Feng and Meng Qing and said, she awoke. Who? Asked Meng Qing. Who had awoken? Lin Feng's heart started pounding. She had awoken? Thousands of years before she hadn't died. Chapter 1660. Getting rid of Lin Feng and Sword Mountain. The Great Elder went to the Forbidden Peak again. Is it clear now? Asked the blurry silhouette. Yes, it is, it's him indeed. He's hiding in a small world, said the Great Elder. After so many years, they had found him again. Fwoosh! Emperor Tai Jian's iron sword started buzzing and whistling. Leader, said the Great Elder, bowing before Emperor Tai Jian. You're my fellow disciple, so you must know the story better than anyone else. I need to go personally, said Emperor Tai Jian. Indeed, back then he had defeated that person, but after such a long time, he had probably recovered. You are wise, brother. Even though the leader of Sword Mountain was his fellow disciple, he was also a great emperor. What is the link between him and Lin Feng? Asked Emperor Tai Jian. Lin Feng is the young master of Jiang'a, where he is living. Maybe he received Emperor Wu Tianjian's teachings there. In that small world, Lin Feng is very famous, and everybody knows him, said the Great Elder. He was trying to think of what to do with Lin Feng. He was a genius, but surprisingly, he was also Wu Tianjian's descendant. Brother, Lin Feng has a fellow disciple from the small world, who's a disciple here in our Sword Mountain. His name is Wuxia, and he's very talented. One of the most outstanding youth from Sword Mountain. He already understands cosmic energies, and his decay abstruse energy is already at the highest degree. He will probably understand decay cosmic energy soon, said the Great Elder of Sword Mountain. Is he his descendant too? Asked Emperor Tai Jian. Lin Feng could already kill emperors and Wuxia was extremely talented. Could they both be his disciple? No, Wuxia and Lin Feng come from Tiantai, a small group of influence. Wuxia has nothing to do with Wu Tianjian. Emperor Tai Jian nodded and said, I know what you mean. Wuxia joined Sword Mountain, so raise him properly. However, since Lin Feng is his descendant, we must get rid of him. Lin Feng has also received the Everlasting Celestial Emperor's teachings. The Everlasting Palace is looking for him as we speak. They will deal with Lin Feng, not that he's back in Goldfire Tower, said the great elder. Think of a solution and find a guide, said Emperor Taijian. The great elder nodded and bowed. He understood. But he was startled. He hadn't thought things would escalate that quickly. Initially, he wanted Lin Feng to be closer to Sword Mountain's people. But he hadn't thought he would be a descendant of Emperor Wu Tianjian. Lin Feng didn't know all those things. He had been protecting Qiu Yuxian for a while as her mercilessness qi grew. Lin Feng used his dream of life ancient scriptures to help her. And in the dream, she dealt with her mercilessness problems safely. Lin Feng also tried many different things to help her, gradually figuring out what worked. If his dream cultivation became better, then he would be able to cure Qiu Yuxian. At that moment, back in Goldfire City, Lin Feng was seated on a chair sunbathing. He closed his eyes and enjoyed the sun. However, something was bugging him. A 1,000-year-old being had awoken, and Qiu Yuxian's mercilessness qi was getting worse and worse. A beautiful girl approached Lin Feng from behind and caressed his chest. Then she put her cheek against his cheek. Lin Feng opened his eyes and smiled in a gentle way. Don't think about it too much. There will be a solution, especially once you become stronger. When you understand dream cosmic energy, you will be able to use dream creation powers to help her completely get rid of her mercilessness, said Meng Qing, giving a massage to Lin Feng. Indeed, whispered Lin Feng. He put his hands on Meng Qing's face and kissed her gently. I will protect you all. I trust you, said Meng Qing smiling. We should go to Goldfire Tower, said Lin Feng. He stood up and started walking. He would go to the vast celestial ancient city with some of the strong cultivators from Goldfire Tower soon. And hopefully he'd break through to the Huang Qi layer soon. I'll call you Xian, said Meng Qing, walking towards a room. After a short time, Meng Qing and Qiu Yuxian came out. Both were wearing men's clothes and had masks. Haha. Lin Feng couldn't help but burst into laughter. Meng Qing stuck out her tongue and laughed. What are you laughing at? You're so beautiful, said Lin Feng laughing. But even like that, I can tell that you're a woman from those beautiful eyes. It doesn't matter, if people don't look at us in the eyes, then we'll be fine, said Meng Qing. Wear a plaited bamboo hat then, and don't draw people's attention, said Lin Feng, still laughing. Meng Qing and Qiu Yuxian nodded, and then they left. Goldfire Tower was a special place for Lin Feng. He could bring people there without having to worry about their safety. Lin Feng was walking towards his room when a beautiful girl called for him. Lin Feng. When he saw her, he smiled. Lin Shui. Lin Feng, the contest ended a while ago in Sword Mountain, so why didn't you come back earlier? Did anything happen to you on the way back? Asked Mu Lin Shui, glancing at the two people with Lin Feng. Nothing happened, I was just traveling, replied Lin Feng in a gentle way. Mu Lin Shui didn't live far from him, so Lin Feng guessed that she had been waiting for him the entire time. Oh, Mu Lin Shui nodded. She didn't know what to say. She had been sad since he left. Back then, when they made weapons together, she was always relaxed. But now she didn't know what to say and felt stupid. Who are they? Asked Mu Lin Shui, looking at Meng Qing and Qiu Yuxian. My friends, said Lin Feng smiling. By the way, I've heard that you were going to the vast celestial ancient city with some strong cultivators from Goldfire Tower. I'll be coming too, said Mu Lin Shui, smiling proudly. Lin Feng smiled wryly, especially when he remembered the two beautiful women behind him. Lin Shui, you have the 9-headed imperial snake fire. It's a perfect time for you to stabilize your cultivation. You should stay here and practice weapon forging techniques, suggested Lin Feng. Lin Feng is right. The vast celestial ancient city is very far away, and the trip will be extensive. You should stay here instead, said the professor in the golden purple clothes. But I want to go, said Mu Lin Shui. Meng Qing looked at Lin Feng angrily. He was making a woman sad again. Chapter 1661. Nihility Sword Scriptures. Lin Feng smiled wryly when he heard Mu Lin Shui, saying, Lin Shui, it's not the right time for you to go and travel. I will come back to Goldfire Tower to see you if I have time. In the future. In the world of cultivation, dozens of years were not considered that long of a time. So him saying this might mean he'd come back in the next 100 years. Lin Feng is right. In the future, you will have the opportunity to travel, but for now you should focus on becoming stronger first, said the professor in the golden purple clothes. When will you come back? Asked Lin Shui. She looked desperate, but still tried to smile. After having broken through to the Huangqi layer, I may need your help to make imperial weapons in the future, said Lin Feng, smiling. He wanted to build Tiantai in the great world, and if he did, he'd need weapons for his disciples. But Lin Shui didn't know about Lin Feng's plans. She only knew that he was a great deployment spellcaster, and that he didn't know that much about imperial weapons. By the way, before I go to the vast celestial ancient city, I'd like to refine a sword, said Lin Feng, suddenly thinking about his Tianji sword. Seeing how it already contained a lot of sword souls, he wanted it to become more powerful. Refine what sword? Asked Lin Shui. She missed the good old times when they used to make weapons together. This sword. Lin Feng made his Tianji sword appear. What a strange sword. The professor in golden purple clothes was surprised as he said, Your sword has souls? Indeed, replied Lin Feng, nodding. That sword can be modified indeed. Besides, it is strongly connected to your soul, so it can become even more powerful, said the professor, smiling. He was surprised. Lin Feng was only a Zun cultivator, but his sword contained souls, like it was alive. When should we refine it? Lin Shui asked Lin Feng. Lin Feng asked, When do we leave for the vast celestial ancient city? I'll come to your room when we leave, said the professor, smiling. I'm off for now. I suppose we can do it now then, said Lin Feng when he saw the professor leaving. I need materials, so wait for me here, said Lin Shui, also leaving. Lin Shui was surprisingly gone for a few days. When she came back, they began to prepare refining the Tianji sword. Before they started, some lights appeared around them. It was the first time Lin Feng saw what a sword soul looked like. The purple one was the thunder soul, the red one was fire, and so on. The dots were suspended in the sky, clear to see by anyone. I need to cleanse my sword again, thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng, your sword is different from many imperial weapons because it has souls. The strength of your sword is limited to the power of its souls. Because of this, your deployment marks and the soul of your sword are interconnected. Said Lin Shui. Elsewhere in Goldfire City, there were two people who were gazing into the distance. There wasn't a single soul in sight around them though. Are you sure he's in Goldfire Tower? Asked one of them indifferently. It was a young man. I'm sure, said the other one, nodding. Who are you? Are there tensions between Goldfire Tower and you? Those people had given them information. They even brought them to Goldfire City. But what was their goal? That person smiled indifferently and said, We just gave you some information. It's important to know that Goldfire Tower is going to send some people to the vast celestial ancient city, and Lin Feng will be going with them. If you don't want to offend Goldfire Tower, you should wait a bit longer. We told you everything we could, so we're off now. This has nothing to do with us, said that person before he left. The young man didn't even glance at them. He had learnt what he wanted to know. Watch Goldfire Tower and be careful. We'll do it on the road, said the young man. Back in the small world, there was a strong cultivator wearing ordinary clothes. And he wasn't tall, but he had a gigantic iron sword on his back. He had some memories in his godly awareness, which contained a map of central Bahuang. However, at that moment, the middle-aged man stopped in the sky, for in front of him was a gigantic sword mountain. An old and tired-looking man was seated there. You're still alive, said Emperor Taijian. You became the leader of Sword Mountain, and you've also become a great emperor, said the old man, looking at Emperor Taijian calmly. Where are the Nihility sword scriptures? Asked Emperor Taijian coldly. Teacher told you. The Nihility sword scriptures are not suitable for you. They're only good for my cultivation. A terrifying force oppressed the mountain, but the old man remained calm and didn't move. The old man was confused. He also wanted you to be the descendant of Sword Mountain. But in the end, you lost against me, and I became a great emperor. If I had the Nihility Sword scriptures, I would be even stronger," shouted the great emperor. His voice resonated all around the region. Some parts of the mountain even exploded. "Back then I lost against you, and I've never recovered. I know I can't fight against you, but you can't kill me either." "Concerning the Nihility Sword scriptures," said the old man, smiling indifferently. Then he stood up and looked at Emperor Taijian. His eyes were twinkling and contained Wuxian energy. Boom! Emperor Taijian suddenly moved backwards at full speed. He felt that something was going to leave an imprint in his brain. "Break!" shouted Emperor Taijian furiously. The ground was shaking before Emperor Wu Tianjian's sword energy eventually weakened and dispersed. Emperor Taijian looked back at the old man. But the old man just smiled as his silhouette disappeared and turned to void. "You understand, don't make any mistakes. Even though I can't kill you, I can easily kill a few people from Sword Mountain." With that, the atmosphere became calm again as if he had never been there. Nihility Sword scriptures, Nihility Sword scriptures. Emperor Taijian looked at the sky and released sword energies, destroying a mountain range. In a few minutes, all the mountains around him had disappeared, leaving a barren flatland. Emperor Taijian looked furious. The old man hadn't recovered, but he had started studying the Nihility Sword scriptures. That you're tuning in to the Lime's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.